Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat U gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat U ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan U op te dra. Sikelele eleswe letu nabantu balo. Umusele ukulundi kwipondu letu. Kozi sikelele I Afrika. Kina abantwana bayo. Kokela in kokeli zayo. Inike ikolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Before we start, may I welcome on the galleries our various guests. We have amongst our guests also some fourth year social work students from the University of the Western Cape and also a matriculant from Brackenfell High School. Most welcome here. Enjoy the debates. Order. May I also at this stage then say that members on the gallery, order. Our visitors on the galleries are most welcome here, but they must please refrain from participating in the debate by way of clapping, interjections, or anything of that like. Order, I have to announce that due to the resignation of Mr. L.H. Max, a vacancy had occurred in the representation of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This vacancy has since been filled by the nomination of Ms. W.F. Philander with effect from 15 August 2018. Ms. Wendy Philander was sworn in by the Speaker in the Speaker's office on 15 August 2018. We welcome Ms. Philander in our midst and we wish her well in her new role in the Provincial Parliament. Most welcome here. Order, I see the Chief Whip.
Good afternoon, Deputy Speaker. That notwithstanding Rule 198, precedence be given to the Speaker's to the topic for discussion.
Thank you. There's no objection to that. We will start with the topic for discussion in the name of the Chief Whip. I then, as the first speaker, see the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Constitution of the Republic, Clause 198A, states that national security must reflect the resolve of South Africans as individuals and as a nation, to live as equals, to live in peace and harmony, and to be free from fear and want, and to seek a better life. The question is, has the sense of freedom and peace been achieved in South Africa, and has life changed for the better for all? Many citizens would dispute this, and for those living in the Western Cape, there is an increasing sense that we have been abandoned to our own devices in the face of rising crime levels and an inability or unwillingness of the state to counter it. For a number of years now, there has been a growing sense of unease that we are being treated differently as far as policing and crime prevention is concerned, and to this end, a number of steps have been taken to prove this fact. The Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry of 2014, requested by a range of community-based NGOs, proved beyond a doubt that policing levels in that vast township were poor and that people lived in fear and terror in the face of rampant crime and abuse. Just yesterday, the Department of Community Safety briefed the relevant Standing Committee on progress regarding the wide-ranging recommendations of that report. Regrettably, several of these relating to the SAPs have not yet been achieved, most notably the submission of quarterly crime statistics to the MEC and the filling of vacancies, especially of the FCS, which is the Family, Children and Sexual Offences Unit. Just this week, a protest led by learners marched on this legislature as they felt unsafe, not only in school, but going to and from their homes. For this same reason, a group of NGOs has approached the Equality Court about the poor resourcing of police service in the province and the apparent reluctance of the responsible national department to address the matter. Judgment is awaited. In another landmark step, the Public Service Commissioner, Dr. Lutuli, last week presented the findings of the report into an investigation of personnel practices and shortages of the Western Cape SAPs. Commendably, the chair of the Standing Committee, Member Wenger, who is currently on maternity leave, approached the PSC armed with the findings of a series of province-wide public hearings into the matter. These findings have formed the basis of the report and led to a set of recommendations from the PSC. This is all-important report by a Chapter 10 institution dealing with public administration emphasized what most suspected. We have a dire problem that is putting lives at risk on a daily basis. That in the face of increasingly serious and violent crimes in this province, the SAPs are woefully under-resourced to the point of disaster. Just yesterday, the Provincial Commissioner sitting in this very bench in front of me told the Community Safety Committee that the situation regarding police resources was very poor. Nobody is totally safe at present. Last week, 2 police officers were shot dead in separate incidents without provocation simply because the assailants wanted their firearms. Several people, including a child, have been killed in gang-related violence in the last few days. They all join a long and growing list of victims of extreme and gratuitous violence, hurting every citizen and activity of life in this province. How has this disaster come about? There are a number of factors. The first is the severe neglect by the responsible national department to address the skewed balance of resources for almost 20 years. Some would say it began when the governing party realized that it would not win this province politically. Delegations to the then President Mandela saw some relief, especially during the urban terror phase. Later, President Mbeki and the police minister were approached, but this produced little, until, by default, the ANC came into power in coalition with the National Party. Statistics will show a sudden spike in police recruitment, a boost for detectives and case processing, and support for specialist units. The murder rate dropped significantly from 3,664 in 2003 to 2,680 in 2005. Police totals shot to 20,072 in 2008, and police to population ratio echoed the national average of around 1 officer per 345 citizens. However, upon a fall of that administration in 2009, the incoming DA found the tide was turning against them. Within a short space of time, the training of new police recruits dropped dramatically. 1 year alone, there were none trained for the Western Cape. At this point, I wish to quote from the PSC report. The determination of police numbers is calculated at a national level to determine an allocation of resources in the provinces. The number of detectives is based on the number of reported crimes. This was borne out by the landmark occasion when the then National Commissioner appeared before the Provincial Standing Committee on the 27th of August 2013 in this chamber, where she quoted Section 11 of the SAPS Act, that's Act 68 of 1995, where she states, "The National Commissioner is responsible to determine the fixed establishment of the SAPs and the number of and grading of posts, and to determine the distribution of the numerical strength of SAPs." Furthermore, she made the following astounding statement. The minimum service level requirements at Vispol, that's the Bobby on the beat at station level, is to render a 24-hour service 7 days a week. At the Community Service Centre, you can expect 4 members per shift, including a shift commander and an operations commander. And at sector team minimum standards is 2 vehicles. Thank you. Can I have protection, please?
Order, Honourable Janchi.
I'm quoting directly from the National Commissioner. In every sector, 2 vehicles with 4 members per sector, excluding a sector commander. But just 2 weeks ago, General Brandt, the cluster commander for both Mitchells Plain and Wynberg, stated at a CPF meeting that the best the Provincial Commissioner could do with the resources at his disposal was 1 vehicle per sector. In other words, half of the national minimum standard. And yet, as any honourable member who has visited a local SAP station recently will testify, many stations can only muster a single vehicle for multiple sectors, especially the night shift, and often only 1 or 2 members in the charge office. The current SAPS levels are so low that they are just above the 2008 total and are exactly 20,969, yet the population has grown by more than 1 million. The numbers peaked in 2013 at 22,633 and have now got in a planned 5 to 6 year decline cycle year on year. Police to population figures in the province are now at a shocking country leading 1 officer to 509 population, as opposed to the national average of 1 officer to 369. The desired United Nations guideline standard is a reported 1 officer to 222 citizens. 128, that's 85% of the 150 SAP stations in the province are seriously understaffed. In 2014, there were 2,392 vacancies, including key posts, and the situation today may well be worse. The PSC has given SAP 6 months to fill the vacancies. Case dockets per detective are at an impossible level at most stations, and reports that some detectives are carrying 150 or more cases have been received. Under these circumstances, low conviction rates can be expected, and these are reported in single digits. The worst stations affected by these shortages are frequently the ones most in need of policing, with the highest crime rates. The murder rate has increased in 10 years from 2,836 to 3,311 last year. In every single crime category in the Western Cape, it is in the top 4 places in the country. In 6 key crime categories, like drug offences, cash in transit, contact crimes and robbery, it is either the leading province or second out of the 9 provinces. Police reservists, previously a vital source of manpower, have dropped from 2008 at 9,825 to virtually 0 today due to bungled policy decisions during Celebi's time. Similarly, the disbandment of special units also at that time saw gangsters really take hold.
Order, Member Wale, just 1 second. Honourable Janji.
Can the member take a question, please?
Not
Please
prepared.
take it.
No, it can't.
Member is not prepared. Please take your seat. Please take your seat. Proceed, Madam.
Current Operation Thunder, about which the Standing Committee received an excellent report yesterday, is testimony that a focused, intelligence-driven operation produces results. The problem is that Thunder is a short-term crisis intervention and has to be replaced by dedicated and permanent provincial teams without delay. Very shortly, many of the thousands that have been arrested will be released on bail or have cases dropped.
Order.
The criminal justice...
Remember, your time is almost expired. Just finish off.
The situation, Deputy Speaker, cannot continue. The citizens of this province are entitled to feel safe at home in using transport, going about their lawful business on a daily basis.
Time has expired. Honourable Wale, Honourable Janji, the ANC Speaker is Honourable Lekker, please. Allow her the time. I see the Honourable Lekker.
Next door to you, he does not care. He's supposed to be a minister and he's useless.
Order.
Let me take this opportunity to express my delight at the opportunity to partake on this important debate on policing and safety in the Western Cape. This debate is not to find solutions to the crime situation in the province. Its purpose is to make clear that Member Wiley's diatribe against SAP's leadership and the ANC government. In the quest to politicize the issue of policing, which started with the Kailicha Commission, the party now had to commission the PSC to investigate police shortages in the Western Cape. Honourable Wenger exaggerated the situation and motivated strongly for the PSC to investigate policing in the province. In her email dated May the 4th, you can clearly see that Honourable Wenger is trying to persuade the PSC to focus mainly on the issue of under-resourcing of police instead, and in fact turn a blind eye on the challenges of limited resources police are faced with. The PSC report even noted some of Honourable Wenger's untruth when she claimed that SAPS will receive an additional 12 billion, when in actual fact the budget decreased by 264 for the main appropriation of 87. We must call on Ms. Wenger and the DA to desist from politicizing the issue of policing. They can learn from MEC Plateau. They can learn from MEC Plateau, who stood in front of this August House a month ago and praised the work that Minister Cele and his advisor, a DA member, Leonard Max, were doing to combat crime in the province. Today, amnesia seems to have taken over DA members forgot everything that MEC Plato said when he praised Operation Thunder and other SAPS operations in the province. There is no denying that the shortage of police is a big problem, not only in the Western Cape, but in all other provinces. Other provincial governments commit resources to support the work of SAPS. In the Western Cape, we have a cabinet that defines itself out of the work of the national government. It is busy igniting fires, thus it sabotages all plans of SAPS to combat crime and ensure safety in the province. The DA does not want a safe and free Western Cape. For it, the crime situation in the province is a campaigning tool. It benefits them as its gullible voters and enthused by its demand for deployment of the army. They have fond memories of the army's presence in the street of the province. For us, we know that the army's role is to kill the enemy. Who is the enemy? The DA's army march clearly identify...
Order, member. Just 1 second. Order, Honourable Minister.
Is the member prepared to take a question?
Honourable Lekker, are you prepared to take...
Jy mos my tyd, né?
Order.
Vat die question.
The answer seems no. Please continue.
It means that, first and foremost, the army must be deployed to target foreign nationals in the country. This message is in line with Herman Mashaba's utterance that foreign nationals are responsible for crime in the country and should be deported. They want the army to be responsible for this job, and this is incorrect. Member Wiley knows this, as his family was very close to former Defense Minister Magnus Malan, even going with him on excursions to the Bed Island. We don't need the army to do policing work in the province. We would love to see government deploying more police in the province, but as a country, we can't afford it now. SAPS has put in place Operation Thunder. We have yet in this House, we received a report of SAPS management on the impact of the targeted approach on both gang and meta station.
Order.
The impact is felt
Order,
on the
order,
ground.
order. Just 1 second. Minister Plato, order. 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 Honourable Gaga, if the chair speaks, the House must come to order. Honourable Plato, you must please withdraw that statement, that utterance of shut up. It's unparliamentary.
Honourable Speaker, that remark was uncalled for.
Order.
Uncalled for to make that link.
Order.
Mark Wiley, what they have
Order,
done.
Member Plato.
Or completely
Order.
uncalled for, Speaker.
Order.
I say so.
Order. Honourable Gaga. Order. Honourable Magaka. Order. Honourable Magaka, for the last time, if the chair asks for order, it means order. Honourable Plato, I will come back to this statement. I didn't hear that. The statement that you made is of shut up, that's unparliamentary. Please withdraw that first.
Honourable Speaker, I duly withdraw that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the statement that you refer to? Order. Order. Honourable. Order. Honourable Plato, order. Honourable Plato. Honourable Plato, you referred to a statement that I must look at. What was that?
The Bird Island statement and the laughings they made at Honourable Wiley.
Order. Order. Honourable, I will look at that. I will go to Hansard and see. I didn't hear the direct link there, but I will look at that. Honourable Minister?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Speaker said that the Honourable Wiley probably went to Bird Island with his father. Yeah.
Order.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Order.
It is a clear casting of aspersions on the character of Honourable Wiley, and I ask that you would look at the Hansard and...
I will most certainly do that. If that was the reference, then certainly that would be uncalled for. I will look at Hansard and come back to the House. Honourable Lekker, you may continue.
Thank you. Speaker, I would like to address you on the comment made by Member Schaefer.
I've already ruled.
I will read directly from the statement as to what I said.
You don't need to do it. I will go back to Hansard and I'll come back to the House.
Chairperson, I must clear my name because clearly she misunderstood and she did not want to hear what was written and spoken to here.
Order. I take your word that there might have been a misunderstanding, but the chair has ruled the chair will come back to the House. Please continue.
As and when you continue, Speaker, investigating this, you must ask for a copy of my statement.
Member, the official record of the House is Hansard, and what you've spoken will be reflected on Hansard,
Thank
so
you.
I will do that.
Thank you, and not listen to the perception that she's creating.
Members, Lekker, please continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Menenberg, Ravensmead, Steenberg, and Worcester have experienced decrease in both murder and attempted murder. These base camps are enhancing the perception that safety in the identified areas, providing an additional policing resources in those areas by deploying more operational ready personnel. The provincial government should move away from the opposition stance it has adopted. It must support the efforts and use Section 206 to support the work of the police. The ANC during its government time came up with very good programs that led to the decrease of crime in the province, including the deployment of Bambanani to patrol in all communities. Schools, open spaces, and buildings were safe, and the relationship with communities was improved. The DA came and dismantled all the program, and as a result, crime soured. It has set up parallel police office in the city, which destabilizes police efforts. The rogue Metro Police is unable to perform its task of supporting SAPS. We have read how the rogue Metro Police is conducting investigations on matters of a DA councillor, including Interpol investigation. Right now, the Metro Police is embroiled in a case of sexual harassment of a female officer by senior leadership members of the Metro Police, and this leadership is keeping mum. How can we entrust the DA to protect the citizen of the Western Cape when it can't even protect its own members of the Metro Police? In this August month, I am calling on the DA leader here in this House to investigate the allegations by a female constable who claimed to have been harassed at work, and the city is very quiet about it. There is compelling evidence that the DA is funding gangs in the province through the payment of protection fees to gang its projects in communities.
Order, Minister Fritz. Is there a point of order?
You know, this is outrageous
Is
statement.
that an order? Is that an order?
Talking nonsense like that.
Order. I will address that. That is not a point of order. That's a debating point. And the member refers to the party and not to a specific member, so I'm happy that she can continue. Honourable
Speaker, it seems like it's one of those days again. Honourable Fritz is totally unparliamentary today, and I really want
I
you to...
will control that.
Today there's a specific problem again.
Honourable, but similarly, there are members on the other side who also... Order. There are also members on the other side who are out of character today. So both sides are transgressing the rules here, and I want to ask that we come to order. Honourable Lekker, your time is starting again now. You may continue.
The DA has used taxis owned by gangsters to transport its members to DA activities. MEC Plato befriended gang bosses instead of prosecuting them. All the above will be the legacy. All the above will be the legacy of the DA in fighting crime. It only committed resources towards the Chris Alice Academy and funded religious communities on a feeding scheme. It also introduced ineffective walking buses, and this is against the backdrop of the province being a murder capital. Having said all of the above, the issue of police shortages in the poor communities is a serious challenge. The ANC on its 54th conference resolved on the need to increase the capacity of police officers in line with the realities on the ground. This included reducing the ratio of police to population ratio over the period of 5 years, as well as to increase the number of vehicles and police stations. We fully agree with this, and we're calling on national government to see to it that this resolution is fully implemented within specified timeframes. Equally, the ANC resolves that CPF must be strengthened and adequately trained and resourced. We have been fighting the DA administration over the strengthening of CPFs. The DA in this province is deliberately killing CPFs and opting to prioritize neighborhood watch. This is part of the big political strategy to control over policing. No wonder JP's unit has operated pseudo-intelligence and police unit which spied on councillors, carried investigation on serious cases such as murders. We must call on the DA to desist politicizing crime and safety. Instead, they must work towards fostering good relations between police and communities. Under the ANC government, we excelled on this. Community structures and their involvement on safety have a critical role to play. The DA government in this province and local municipalities must commit resources where they are needed most. The incentives in the neighborhood watch and capacitate the CPF to the resources to the CPF. The failure to do this has led to the current situation. The failure to regulate sheep bins in the township has contributed immensely to the situation we are faced with. We call for the review of trading hours of liquor outlets in the township and villages. I want to remind the DA that its responsibility is to support in its efforts the fight against crime. It has a responsibility to foster the relations between SAPS and the community, but instead, DA has been actively instigating people against SAPS. The commission, the Kailicha Commission, is one of the mechanisms they use to set the people against the police. Millions were spent, and these recommendations have not been implemented in full. Clearly, it shows that the political ploy and no intentions of promoting safety. Premier Zille continues with her antics as she unilaterally shortlisted, interviewed, and made recommendations for the new police ombudsman in the province. It is part of the campaign to discredit work of SAPS. Given all challenges we are faced with in the province, I want to commend the police for the great work they have done, particularly with the current operation, which is called Operation Thunder, and I want to encourage them to continue doing the good work despite the DA's sabotage. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. I see the Honourable Minister Grant. Order. Order. Order.
Deputy Speaker, it is significant that at the start of the week in which this debate is taking place, one of the daily newspapers in Cape Town published a letter written by the chairperson of the National Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police under the heading of Urgent Need for Security at Police Stations to be Improved. In the letter, the chairperson, Francois Bierkman, states that the National Commissioner of Police has been requested to brief the Portfolio Committee on measures to increase security at police stations. He refers to the attacks on police stations during the parliamentary recess as a clear indication that there are gaps in the plan to address safety at police stations. The chairperson goes on to say that the lack of progress by SAPS with the implementation of a proactive national plan to install CCTV cameras at police stations, the upgrading of perimeter fencing, and the installation of secure entrance gates is a huge concern to the committee. This is then, Deputy Speaker, the backdrop against which this debate is taking place today.
Order.
Situation...
Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Janki, this is a serious debate. You're giving a running commentary now. That was a good interjection, but that was the exception. The others were just comments and screaming across the floor. So please contain yourself. Member, you may continue.
A situation in which even the government agencies responsible for preventing crime and protecting citizens, property owners, and businesses fall short of being able to protect themselves. It is also the background against which I specifically want to highlight the challenges of policing and safety in the public transport domain. Deputy Speaker, crime on public transport networks is a worldwide challenge, as such networks by their nature result in commuters congregating at pick-up place, being conveyed in a relatively confined space according to a known or predictable schedule. This is the reason for the fact that these networks are often the target of terrorism, as maximum harm can be done in a defined area. Worldwide, a range of measures varying in levels of sophistication has been developed and implemented to counter crime on and around these networks. A key element, however, of all of these measures is effective law enforcement. Success or failure is dependent upon the extent to which the crime is anticipated and detected.
Order, Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Churcham, is that a question or point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to understand the relevance. We are dealing with Western Cape in terms of the subject here. In the worldwide and all other things.
Order. I'm listening to the members. Order. I hear your point, and I'm happy with the Minister can continue so far. Minister, you may continue.
Deputy Speaker, this is just designed to actually interpret the flow. And the bottom line is, the extent to which crime is anticipated and detected, the perpetrator is apprehended, properly processed through a justice system, and then punished. And here, Deputy Speaker, was where the reality of our situation becomes apparent. Detection and apprehension levels are low, and where people are identified and arrested, processing through and by the criminal justice system is hopelessly inadequate, resulting in very few successful prosecutions and sanctions. As a result, criminals believe that they can commit crime with impunity on and around the public transport system, whether the transport involved is a minibus taxi, other taxis, a bus, or a train. In fact, Deputy Speaker, in our situation, this has resulted in a different aspect of crime in relation to transport networks, one which does not generally occur throughout the world. I mean, of course, crime against the transport network itself. The wanton and irresponsible destruction of transport infrastructure has become an all too common feature of our lives. Critical infrastructure is simply destroyed with no thought to the impact which the loss of taxis, buses, and commuter rail rolling stock has on the lives of decent, hard-working, and often poor residents of our cities, towns, and rural areas as they go about their legitimate business. Deputy Speaker, I believe it is important to unpack in this House some of the relevant statistics in relation to a few modes of public transport as follows. Recent violent crimes in the taxi industry in the Western Cape. May this year, 12 murders, 4 attempted murders, arrests, none. June, 7 murders, 1 attempted murder, arrests, none. July, 8 murders, 1 attempted murder, arrests, none. Total, 27 murders, 6 attempted murders, no arrests. The standard entry for these and other similar crimes which appear in the various SAPS reports reads, "The case is under investigation and no arrests have been made. Since 2012, there have been 80 murders and only 3 convictions. The causes of the conflict are generally known. They are route invasions, continual recruitment of members on the payment of large fees despite the non-availability of operating licenses, unlawful parallel regulatory and enforcement systems run by the industry, ongoing power struggles, the use of vehicles for criminal activity." It is significant that in a submission to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police just a week ago, both COSATU and POPCRU stated that law enforcement agencies must move with speed to arrest perpetrators and rid the industry of illegal firearms that are being used to commit these crimes. Deputy Speaker, I submit that 3 convictions in the Western Cape over a 7-year period involving 80 known murders is anything but moving with speed or efficiency by the relevant law enforcement agencies. And then I move to the theft and destruction of commuter rail infrastructure and rolling stock. Damage to and destruction of rail infrastructure, many would understandably call it sabotage, take many forms, and it's disturbingly easy to carry out in what is a seriously undercapitalized and outdated system. The network is vulnerable in many ways and at many levels: copper wire theft, signal box damage, and electrical interruptions. Through the use of smart technology, some progress is being made with early detection and even arrest. More than 100 arrests. Copper wire syndicates have been identified and shut down. Less vulnerable signaling is being rolled out. This is encouraging, and that is what we are doing. However, Deputy Speaker, absolutely no progress has been made with the most obvious and spectacular destruction: the reckless, wanton, and selfish burning of rolling stock. This has cost well in excess of 500 million rand since October 2015. Sadly, the public is becoming used to photographs and video clips of trains burning fiercely, producing flames meters high. Trains do not ignite easily, Deputy Speaker. An electrical fault may account for one or two of the fires, but not for the number and the regularity we've experienced in recent months and years. Fires of this order require an accelerant and have to be set and encouraged by people. People leave clues and forensic trails, particularly when these fires are started in stations and at staging yards, and yet virtually no one has been detained. After a series of such fires on the 27th of July, I accompanied the National Minister of Transport and senior SAPS and crime intelligence officials on a visit to the scene of the most recent fires, as well as an inspection of the destroyed coaches. On this occasion, SAPS submitted a report on the 32 incidents of train burning on the Greater Cape Town network since May 2015. There have been others since the meeting of the 27th of July, but the summary of the cases indicate that 30 forensic investigations had been completed, but there were no positive forensic results for 21 of the 30 completed investigations. In only 4 cases are there positive forensic outcomes, and the suspects have yet to be traced. For the 6 cases of arson in June to July 2018, 1 arrest was made, but the person arrested had to be released after 10 days because of insufficient evidence and because incorrect processes had been followed in making the arrest. At the start, Deputy Speaker, I indicated that a key element of all successful measures to combat crime in the public transport system is effective law enforcement. What we have available to us in this province, by courtesy of the national government, is woefully short of the mark. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. Your time has also expired. In the absence, order. Order. In the absence of the EFF, I see Minister Plato.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. The budget for CPFs in this province is well over 5 million rand per annum. The deployment of the base camps under Operation Thunder has been welcomed as a necessary intervention in some of our most violence-prone areas, where gangsters and drug lords are holding our communities ransom with perpetual gun violence and fear. The commanding officers are trying their level best through coordinated interventions, increased intelligence and additional deployments to bring stability back to communities who have been ravaged by the scourge of gangsterism, drugs and guns. Successes over the last couple of months see massive ammunition caches were confiscated, in particular 150 rounds and 270 rounds of live, brand new ammunition confiscated. We heard how legal, traceable weapons were confiscated and how illegal weapons without serial numbers have been confiscated. These operations were able to see not a single murder being recorded in an observed month in one community. Honourable Speaker, the temporary 3 months base camp deployment has allowed kids to walk safely in the streets and is allowing kids and parents like to walk to nearby shops without having to fear for their lives. Horrifically, we also heard the communities themselves acknowledging that this might be a temporary sense of safety in the community, pleading with commanding officers and myself that they fear the day the base camps are removed and the additional deployments move out of the community, as this will mean war will return to their streets. The deployment of additional resources, increased cooperation, and improved intelligence is making in our communities are literally the difference between life and death. Honourable Speaker, though not all base camps are operating successfully, and though there has been concerns about their effectiveness in the long run, what these cases and camps pointed out is the difference between policing and safety in the Western Cape that the people of the province has become accustomed to under the thugs that have been ruling the streets, and that of what all communities deserve when deployment of policing resources are better aligned with the safety threats people experience on a daily basis. It is confirmation of the problem which the Western Cape government and the provincial legislature has been vocal about at every opportunity. And that is, Honourable Speaker, it is a lack of visible policing and the shortage of police officers within communities. The deployment of only 269 officers stationed at only a few base camps ensure police visibility we need, and that is the essence of the problem. Coupled to this is a letting go of some thousands of police reservists, which left a void that is hard to be filled by the current police force. If 269 extra additional officers bring this change, what can 1,000 extra officers not do? This is the reason why the Public Service Commission has found that vacant posts that are critical should be filled within a 6-month period, and that is critical. All of this is a national police management failure. Honourable Speaker, it is deteriorating conditions between our populace in the province and the police, which has allowed the criminals, the gangsters, drug lords and gun runners in our communities to manifest themselves as the authority in our communities and not the state. In too many areas in our province, the ANC post-democratic government's failure to adequately invest in the police to combat crime, prevent crime, and keep all inhabitants safe, as they are mandated to do by the Constitution, has led to the state failing to change the lived safety experiences or improved their lives. The Public Service Commission even mentioned that the current police force might even become smaller, and that is one of the recommendations. The ANC government is actually, Honourable Speaker, handing our communities over to gang bosses and drug lords on a silver plate. That shows no respect for safety and for lives. What the recommendations made by the Commission showed us was the preamble to what the Standing Committee on Community Safety in the Provincial Legislature and the Public Service Commission found. Poor policing management and policy decisions has dire consequences for the safety of communities in the province and on the police's ability to stem the tide against crime. It was a mistake, Honourable Speaker, to do away with the specialised drug and gang units within the police. The drug floodgates opened the moment the specialised drug and gang units was disbanded. The statistic speaks for itself. Between 2003 and 2004 financial year and the 2012-2013 financial year, drug-related crime in the Western Cape has increased from 19,940 reported cases to over 82,000 reported cases, an increase of over 311%. This is nothing other than an ANC government failure. We need the specialised gang and drug units to be reintroduced. These units possess the necessary resources and expertise to investigate and make arrests and come with a track record of success. Yet, repeated promises by numerous national policing ministers recently and former President Zuma has remained just that, empty promises, all while the shootings and killings in our communities continue. Honourable Speaker, it was a major mistake, and let me repeat, to let go of thousands of well-trained police reservists. What a void it left. The current police force cannot cope without the reservists as a force multiplier. Bring them back. The department has made an official proposal to SAPS to pay a stipend to those fully trained and equipped police reservists who are underutilized, mostly sitting at home. We must succeed to mobilize these trained men and women to work for safety, especially within priority projects such as the safety of train and bus commuters, safety at schools, and for the prevention of gangster activities. I know that our proposal is still under consideration and that we require approval at national SAPS level. I wish to make an urgent appeal to the National Minister to ensure a speedily and positive response to this unique partnership opportunity between the Western Cape government and SAPS. The extent of the gang problem in the province is worsening with youth as young as 11 years old, not only joining gangs, but also being responsible for increased violence in our communities. The skirts of gangsterism, drugs, and gun-wielding criminals not only affect the safety of our communities, but also service delivery in some areas, as we have seen happening in so many of our communities. This is why the Western Cape government has called in the past, and we confirm that call once again, for the deployment of the army to assist the police in peacekeeping, to allow the dedicated police to do the necessary investigations and gain convictions on behalf of communities living in fear. Bambananis can't investigate, and Bambananis can't arrest, and Bambananis cannot stop any gangster bullet. That
Order, Minister, just 1 second, just 1 second. Honourable Lekker, are you hiding there? I can't see you, but I can hear you. Please contain yourself. Minister, you may proceed.
All of those, Honourable Speaker, can only be done by a trained professional force, and that force today is not a Bambanani force, Honourable Speaker, it is the police force. We're talking about a professional and effective police force which is not there currently. Honourable Speaker, the resourcing constraints the police face is rendering them toothless in their reactions, possibly outgunned, and with much to be desired in their proactive approach. The continued scourge of gun-wielding gangsters and drug lords in our communities requires all authorities to look at what else can be done to disarm the criminals and stop the bloodshed.
Minister, just finish off. Your time has expired.
In the Western Cape, most gang-ridden communities, guns are too readily available and accessible. And this cannot be left to continue unabated.
Thank you, Member. Your time has expired. The Honourable Christians.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP in the Western Cape wants to say to the DA and the ANC today that you have failed the people of the Western Cape when it comes to their safety. The ANC nationally has for a long time under-resourced the province, and our communities' safety is at risk. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the DA knows this for a long time, almost governing for 10 years. Surely they must have a plan. Surely we will have always too little police personnel. Gauteng also have too little police personnel, but we must do with what we have. And the ACDP is asking, what is the Western Cape government doing to keep our communities safe? Minister Plato will always talk about safety kiosk. Is that reducing crime? Minister Plato will always talk about other interventions like the walking bus. Is it reducing crime? Now I want to say this, that the DA believes in fit for purpose. But why did they let go of Leonard Max, a highly qualified police commissioner, an advocate, and you let him go? So, it is a fact that here is a political game. There's no doubt that the DA has got personal agendas that's more important than the safety of the people of the Western Cape. The time has come for the people of the Western Cape to see the DA for what they is. Political hypocrites. Only good to criticize. Good insulting, but nothing more. I'm asking, and the ACDP is asking, why is the people in the Western Cape unsafe? Because we have a minister, and I'm looking him in the eye. You have failed our people. You have failed our people.
Order.
And they are not safe.
Order.
So the ANC and the DA must collectively take responsibility for the safety of,
Thank
for
you,
the
member.
unsafety of our people.
Your time has
in the Western
expired.
Cape. Thank you.
Order. Please, order. Come to order before I see the Honourable Diana. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this is an interesting topic. If you want to address the increase of crime adequately, there are certain standards that are critical that should be considered. Number one, it's political will to make the conditions favorable. Number two is planting resources to effectively deal with the evils of crime. As ANC, we are not convinced that the Department of Community Safety is fulfilling its core mandate of eradicating crime and ensuring that our people live in communities that are crime-free. For any community to make progress, be it economically or socially, safety and stability are key factors that give confidence and encourages growth. During the State of the Nation address, our President, His Excellency, Mr. Ramaphosa, called for the implementation of a community policing strategy and a youth crime prevention strategy. Community policing is a foundational pillar towards effective and democratic policing. We cannot achieve excellence in policing without the involvement of family, street religious institutions, schools, social clubs, work, and others. Community policing forums have a special task to coordinate the relationship between the communities and the police. There are two major drivers behind the current crime rate in the province: unemployment and the lack of proper planning in eradicating crime ever since DA has been in government. The DA has been abusing state resources to fight their own internal political wars. An example of such abuse is the once disbanded and recently reinstated SIU of Cowboy Sheriff J.P. Smith. This rogue parallel police force, according to a recent report, this rogue unit investigated serious crimes such as murders and attempted murders, despite not having the authority to do so. Instead of assisting the police, the SIU was usurping the work of the police and was unnecessarily looking into the affairs of councillors. A letter dated 7 November 2017, Major General Felix Mbeki, the SEP's provincial head for legal and policy services, informed the city that the Metro Police Service had not been allocated investigative powers and functions. The shot spotter has cost 32 million in total, detected 3,409 gunshots in 1,140 incidents in which 20 people were injured, but only 9 people have been arrested. This is the City of Cape Town's shot spotter, a system that detects and conveys the location of gunfire. This is so-called crime prevention tool, but it did not even make an impact in Hanover Park. It is an increasingly intolerable fact of life in this province that hardly a day passes without us hearing of yet another murder, rape, and burglary. We must strive to take away from potential criminals the opportunity to commit the crimes. The department needs to be one step ahead of criminals in their crime-fighting techniques. Our people in Nyanga, Mitchell's Plain, and other hotspots deserve interventions that will bring about a change in the material reality and quality of life of their lives as enshrined in our Constitution. Another issue that needs to be tackled urgently is that of drugs that is destroying many lives. The current strategies which are in place have not produced the results desired. The consumption of drugs has a negative impact in our province as it destroys the social fabric of communities. We call for integrated, comprehensive and coordinated intergovernmental action to address all aspects of the supply and availability of drugs in our communities. I want to state it clear that the DA has failed to address the root causes of crime in our province. The socio-economic conditions are the real causes of the high crime rate. The evils of the caliber, which is poverty, race and class, are the evils that continue to haunt the people of Western Cape. When addressing the crime in the province, all the MEC could offer is to shift the blame to national government, and the only solution from DA is bring back army. We will keep on asking serious questions in this House and outside of it to ensure that the Department of Community Safety and the provincial government in general remain accountable to the members of the public who depend on government for their safety and security. As leaders in this province, we must be seen as non-denounce crime and not just talk about it. We need to join all our efforts to eradicate crime in our province. We owe it to our province to call wrong, wrong, and right, right. It is the only way that we can preserve our province and pass it on to prosperity as a stable and prosperous province for all to enjoy. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, we urge the MEC of Community Safety and the Premier to consider Provincial Crime Summit, where all stakeholders will be invited to canvass views about how to eradicate crime in the Western Cape province. Further, we will be waiting for the DA-led province to implement the employment of more police from the funding of the Bavarian government. I thank you.
Order. I see Minister Alan Winde.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you very much to the sponsor of this debate. Speaker, we are 24 years into our democracy. And 24 years into our democracy, the ANC has failed our people. They failed our people with BEE. We have gone from 4 million people unemployed to 10 million people unemployed. They have failed with BEE. They've only succeeded with making the select few politically connected wealthy. They have failed with jobs and growth. They have failed with land reform. They spend more money on VIP security than they spend on land reform. They have made the people of this country in the last 24 years poorer than ever before. But Speaker, the area that the ANC have failed this nation the most is in safety and security. They have failed the people of this country where it is a constitutional right to feel safe in the land in which you live. They have absolutely failed in this space. Speaker, this province, where the Constitution says the South African Police Services has to offer that service to the people of this province in order for them to feel safe. In this province, it is the murder capital of the world. We had 3,311 people in this province murdered last year. It is the rape capital of the world. Last year in Mfuleni, rape went up by 40.8%. Speaker, the ANC have failed the people of this country and they've failed the people of this province. When you hear...
Order. Honourable Davids, please come to order.
Speaker, when you hear my colleague saying that even the police feel unsafe in their police stations, when you hear how many police officers are murdered, this is totally unacceptable. Now, why does this happen? Now, I think, Speaker, that every one of these members in the opposition benches, I would also say it to these benches in power, that we should go and read Mandy Wiener's book, The Ministry of Crime. Speaker, we've got an investigation at the moment in this country into state capture. The real capture started happening in our safety and security space in this country, when the Scorpions were closed down. When you read this book and you see crime intelligence is involved directly with the underworld and the gangsters of this country. There you will go and see the cause of why crime is out of hand, why crime is running rampant across not only this province, the whole country. And it is a key driver of driving up that further poverty line that we all experience in our country. You will see it across that we call for the gang units, they closed them down. Anywhere where there was mechanisms within the police service to deal with crime, the top decision makers linked to the ANC, the political party running this country for the last 24 years, you'll find all of those linkages if you go and read that book, The Ministry of Crime. It was captured, and that's why gangs, murder, rape, hijackings are rife in this province. Now, another interesting thing, Speaker, is we've had this debate, and we've heard the ANC take part in this debate, and not once did I hear of a plan. Not once did I hear of anybody on those benches bragging.
Order. Order.
Not once did I hear one member on that side of the House bragging how they run policing in another province. Not one, because they can't. They cannot brag about one space where they're in a provincial space running policing, because they don't run police in provincial spaces. It is a national competency. And this whole legislature should be united in making sure that this province, the people of this province, get more policing so we bring down the crime levels. But of course, that side of the House would never think of that. They would never dream of it, because they are part of that failed ANC that's failed the people of this province. Speaker, then I move on to my portfolio. And in my portfolio, it is really difficult to get economic growth. It is very difficult, and I'm going to use the first example, is in tourism, a key driver of the economy. Tourism, something that Cyril Ramaphosa, when he took office as the president of this country, said, tourism is something that we are going to drive, it's going to create jobs, we're going to grow it. Let alone the other blockages like visas and red tape. Crime affects tourism directly.
Minister, just 1 second. Honourable David, you're giving a running commentary now. Please contain yourself. Please contain yourself. Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The rest was good for my throat. Speaker, if you go and have a look in September, when in Gauteng, Dutch tourists were robbed on their bus, it featured in mainstream newspapers across Europe, across BBC channels, about how unsafe it is coming to visit our country. When a UK couple were attacked on Table Mountain in January, we saw it running rampant again across UK and European newspaper headlines. In Singapore this very week, because some Singapore airline staff were held up in a Johannesburg hotel this very week, again, front pages in a key new market of ours. We're really trying to grow tourism, front page, very unsafe in South Africa. If you go onto the websites of those countries marketing our country and saying, come here for tourism purposes, the USA reports, this is the first sentence, it says, South Africa has a very high level of crime. Violent crimes such as armed robbery, rape, carjacking, mugging, and smash and grab attacks on vehicles affect visitors and residents alike. The first sentence. When you open the UK website to travel to South Africa, it says there is a very high level of crime, including rape and murder in South Africa. If you open the Canadian website, it says South Africa has a very high level of crime. Crime is the primary security threat to travellers. This is totally unacceptable, Speaker. And of course, again, this is where the ANC and the policing of crime in this province and this country rests directly with them, and this is where they have failed. If we look at what's been happening just of late, and of course we respect absolutely anybody's right to protest, but when protests in our region start turning criminal and start burning infrastructure, the news headlines again around the world have a look at the lawlessness and the unacceptable behavior of our own people and how it affects our brand in an international market. We just have to have a look at what happened in the last while in Hermanus and in Stellenbosch. But what really hit me the hardest is when public order police are called in, not a provincial competency. The public order police come to our municipalities and say, can we please borrow some rubber bullets because we don't have sufficient or we have run out? If you are public order police, that is the first briefcase you pick up when you go to work. And that goes to the next core problem with the resourcing of our police force. You hear it all the time. Vehicles don't work, they run out of fuel, they're not maintained, we don't have sufficient vehicles, our police are now scared inside the police stations, they don't have rubber bullets where they've got to deal with unruly crowds. This is just not acceptable. It comes down to the kind of management we are seeing, and where are police in our country managed from? They are managed, according to the Constitution, via a national minister who is responsible for making sure our police forces are resourced, of making sure that our people in our provinces are feeling safe in their homes, are feeling safe at their businesses, are feeling safe in their everyday lives. And what's happening again in my department is we are taking money away from normal economic development projects and putting them into safety and security projects. I'll tell you about the first one, the ATM fraud that we've invested in. I've put R1.5 million now of economic development money into an ATM fraud project where we have, along with Minister Fritz's students coming out of Project Chrysalis, we have brought the average of 45 to 50 hits a month in ATM fraud in the bottom part of the city, down to 1 and 2 since we've embarked on this expenditure. It goes on to Table Mountain Safety and Security and Security Tech.
Just finish off, member. Your time has expired.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is evident, without anything to show from this House, the ANC has totally failed the people of this country and this province.
Thank you. Order. That concludes the debate on this subject. We move on to interpellations. The first interpellation is in the name of Minister Grant. I see Minister Grant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Inanna for this interpellation. What intervention strategies has my department used to restore stability in the taxi industry in the wake of the most recent taxi strike and the taxi elective conference? Deputy Speaker, it is necessary to give some background to the dispute referred to between the Western Cape branch of the South African National Taxi Council, Santaco, and the self-styled minibus taxi industry task team. When Santaco initiated election processes in 2017, in terms of their 2005 constitution, the newly formed MTITT questioned the processes as well as the applicability of the Santaco and provincial constitutions. This led to the destructive and violent actions of 18th September 2017. At this point, my department and I undertook to play a facilitative role to intervene, but not to interfere in what are internal processes. With the agreement of both parties, my department and I facilitated a mediation process led by retired Supreme Court of Appeals Judge Ian Farlam, who, after hearings, delivered an opinion that provided the necessary clarity on the issues. Both parties agreed that the mediation process had been conducted freely and fairly. In November 2017, following failed attempts by the National Office of Santaco to get the parties to agree on the implementation of Judge Farlam's recommendations for the holding of elections, my department briefed senior counsel with the intention of obtaining a declaratory order to bind all parties to a constitutional process for elections. Before the department could lodge its papers, however, the task team had lodged its own papers seeking a similar declaratory order, but with the inclusion of additional demands, such as an order for the department to fund the hosting of a pre-elective conference, and a cost order against the department. The High Court handed down an order on the 6th of June 2018. I, with the approval of both Santaco and the task team, requested Judge Farlam to advise parties on the correct interpretation of the judgment and its effect on planning for the elections and the taxi industry in Durban. On Monday, the 30th of July 2018, I met with the National President of Santaco and members of his national executive to confirm our joint commitment and support for free and fair elections. I had also requested Santaco National and Judge Farlam to meet with both groups. Meetings were arranged for that same afternoon, the 30th of July 2018. Despite the court order, all of the interventions described above and support provided by my department and Santaco's national leadership, the task team threatened to withdraw taxi services unless their demands for a pre-elective conference were met, including the lifting of the suspension of 2 of their members.
Thank you, Minister. Your first slot is expired. Minister, Honourable Inanna.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. The taxi industry is a very integral industry and very important in terms of generating the economy. But as I will expose, the violence is curtailing that progress. In 2015, the minibus taxi industry provided 320,000 passenger journeys per day, or 116.8 million journeys a year. This number has since increased, no doubt due to the many failures and instability of the metro rail. By 2017, minibus taxi journeys increased to 480,000 passenger journeys a day, or 176.9 million journeys a year. In fact, Deputy Speaker, the minibus taxi industry has replaced metro rail as the leading form of public transportation in the province. In 2015, metro rail provided 575,000 passenger journeys per day, or 209.8 million journeys a year. By 2017, in comparison, minibus taxis overtook metro rail as the main form of public transport, as the number of the journeys declined rapidly to only 360,000 passengers journey per day, or 131.4 million journeys per year. In other words, Deputy Speaker, the minibus taxi industry has 45.5 million more passengers journeys than metro rail per year since 2017. As the primary source of public transport in the Western Cape, it is essential that this industry works efficiently and harmoniously. It is imperative that when learners, young professionals, magogos, who are primary commuters do not fear death to drive or to lose their lives due to the taxi violence between competing taxi associations. The question, therefore, to the Minister is, what effect does this violence have on our economy? And what effect does it have on the lives of the innocent, poor people who are on a daily basis depending on the services of this industry? And what is it that must be done in order to make the industry operate safely?
Thank you. The Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker, as I think this House is aware, the ANC MPLs on the standing committee in this legislature, myself and Comrade Nomian Kondlo, out of that we as the ANC could play in actually helping to stabilize the situation. It's a matter of record that the ANC, together with Sanco, and our councillors from the City of Cape Town, began a process of engaging both the minibus task team as well as Santaco, and in the process we were successful in achieving an end to the withdrawal of services which took place on the Monday. I think it's very clear that issues related to the taxi industry are not easy to resolve. They are complex, and I think it's important for no party to claim easy victories. But I think what has been achieved, and in the further meeting that was held with Santaco National, as well as Santaco in the Western Cape, as well as members of the task team, there was then a commitment to look at the roadmap in regard to the convening of all the regional conferences that are supposed to happen, as well as the provincial conference, which would then elect a new Santaco leadership. But I think what is important is for the MEC, as well as the Standing Committee, to reflect honestly on what are those issues which have actually contributed to the divisions and tensions within the taxi industry. Thank you, Member. Your time has expired for this lot.
Honourable Inana.
Deputy Speaker, amongst the many social ills plaguing the taxi industry, violence is intense and unregulated competition. Whilst competition is good and a necessary part of any health economy, where it is unregulated, it can cause devastating consequences. This is exemplified by the many shootings and murders over the lucrative taxi routes. And this is something that has to be resolved, and the allocations of the routes be done following the prescription of the rule of law. Presently, the Standing Committee is reviewing the National Land Transport Act 5 of 2019, better known as Uber Bill. Amongst others, it attempts to restrict where the Uber drivers can conduct their business. However, it does not do the same for the minibus taxi industry. It is problematic that we are not applying the same regulation to all transportation services in the industry, particularly to the industry which is known for violence. We cannot, Deputy Speaker, deny the importance of the taxi industry as it provides a vital source of revenue through our informal economy by providing drivers with employment and skills in driving and small-scale business management. However, this industry needs to be regulated so that the same drivers are not exploited, the taxis remain drivable, ticket prices are not unfair, and passengers also feel safe. Minister, the question is therefore, what scope is there to regulate the taxi industry? And for how long should the taxi who have applied for the permits are granted their permits so that they operate without any fear of being the targets of their rivals?
Thank you. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much. I think when one looks at the court papers in regard to the entire issue of who approached the High Court in terms of getting a declaratory order around the status of the Farlam Commission, which had been appointed to investigate issues, I think we must be very careful to describe the minibus taxi industry task team as a grouping which stands alone, because in fact there were 11 applicants who sought clarity on this. It was Carter, it was Cadetta, it was the taxi associations affiliated to Carter, the Park City taxi operators, KenFAC, Route 7 Transport Service, Mitchell's Plain, Century City, Main Road Taxi Association, Proteoville. Now, I'm not in that sense talking up the issue of the task team, but the reality is that some of these problems were a result of concerns around the governance of the taxi industry. But I think the real issues that the Standing Committee and the MEC need to look at
just finish off
is how we actually deal with issues such as permits, the impact of my city on the taxi operators, issues which have been left unattended.
Thank you, Member. Your time has expired. Honourable Inana.
Deputy Speaker, I'm deeply concerned about the media reports that the Western Cape has, since 2014, experienced an increase of 14% in taxi-related killings. This also brings into focus the murder of Mr. Dan Khumalo, a respected figure in the minibus taxi industry in Cape Town and a senior leader in the Cape Amalgamated Taxi Association, CATA. In response to a previous parliamentary question, the MEC, Mr. Donald Grant, highlighted that the department has arranged briefings and information sharing with SAPS crime intelligence to assess the dispute surrounding taxi-based violence. Additionally, the department is establishing an integrated task team with SAPS, the National Prosecuting Authority, SARS, and others to investigate the root causes and perpetrators of taxi-related crimes and killings. The question to the Minister is that what has his department done to contain the strikes the violence and to stop the murder by intervening in the taxi industry? And as up until now, what has been the situation after the 10 strikes and the killings that has just happened?
Minister Grant.
Deputy Speaker, it's a great pity I've only got 2 minutes to wrap this up because it warrants actually further discussion. So, summarizing very quickly, I just want to say that to limit the recurrence of the mayhem and destruction resulting from the task team's 2017 strike, and we mustn't forget about that, Honourable Doug Moore, that it was repeated on the 6th of August. My department and I publicised widely the process followed and the fact that the task team had no further legitimate basis for action. I also reminded minibus tax operators and associations of their responsibilities towards commuters and the public, and also warned of consequences should they ignore legislation, the Code of Conduct for Operators, and the conditions attached to their operating licenses. At this stage, support for the task team started to decline significantly. That was during the course of the day on the 6th of August. The task team called off the strike that Monday night, despite the fact that the Western Cape government, Santaco and opposition members had not acceded to their demands. There was also a long weekend which was coming, which would hit the pockets of the taxi industry. That little reality is also true. But the task team strike action on the 6th of August coincided with a date that the Santaco's General Secretary had communicated as the date on which the pre-elective special conference was to be held. Deputy Speaker, I can report to the House, however, that following my request for the President of Santaco to urgently reschedule and condense the program for regional conferences in order to ensure that the provincial conference can still be held, I can now advise the House that the new timetable will start on the 11th of September with 8 regional elective conferences and hopefully finish peacefully and productively with the provincial election scheduled to conclude on the 17th of October 2018. And thereafter, Deputy Speaker, I look forward to working with the new democratically elected leadership of Santaco so that we can give our commuters a better deal in the future.
Thank you, Member. Your time has expired. That brings us to the second interpellation. Honourable Botha to Minister Fritz. Minister Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Deputy Speaker. The Victim Empowerment Program of the Department of Social Development funds and supports 20,000 women that provide psychosocial support for women and their children. Empowerment of women that access services starts from the point of intake, and I think it's an important point to make. A social worker provides psychosocial support to empower women to develop personally and make informed decisions with regard to their own future, as well as that of their children. Areas that are focused on are legal recourse, safety, planning, and emotional well-being, parenting skills, and strengthening resilience to ensure restoration and healing. A total of 16 shelters are also funded by the department to provide access to skills development courses. And I think I want to emphasize the skills development courses because the whole idea is after you have been admitted from an abusive husband in a house because you're dependent economically on him, that you take a person into a program that are enabled economically, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, to then on their own go and do their work outside alone. And I want to thank the Honourable Minister Wendy, who has now joined and we've partnered in relation to those skills development for women in those abusive relationships to come away from it and get into our shelters. During the period March 2016 to April 2018, the department funded 3 shelters for skills development and 288 women accessed a range of accredited courses that included home-based care, chef assistance, first aid, computer skills programs, security guards, etc. And the interesting thing with this is again a partnership with some of our corporate partners to be able to absorb some of these women to work within some of those programs. For 2018-19 financial year, the department is funding skills development at all funded shelters to the amount of 852,000 rand, reaching 800 women. The Kensington Facility Treatment and the Kensington Treatment Center is an inpatient treatment center for adult females that specifically focuses on rehabilitation, substance abuse rehabilitation. Program runs for 9 weeks per client. The facility has been officially managed by the Department of Social Development as of August 2016 to date. Before that, it was outsourced. We found it was cheaper to run it ourselves. The facility has admitted 315 women since it has been fully managed by the Department of Social Development. As part of the inpatient treatment program, the female clients have been involved in the following skills development and empowerment programs: life skills, and that includes decision-making ability, conflict management and conflict resolution, stress management, anger management, how to write a CV, job-seeking skills, interview skills, money management, bead making, and they have most amazing products from that.
Order, Minister. You must just finish there. Your time for this slot is
baking programs
expired.
And there's nothing about jumping off a roof.
Thank you. Honourable Lorraine Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Throughout Women's Month, I found myself asking what is the necessary to achieve substantive gender equality within our complex society. As we all know, South Africa's society is incredibly unequal and has many social cleavages, including race, gender, religion, to name but a few. According to the Poverty Trends Report for 2006 to 2015, 30.4 million people, or 55.5% of South Africans, are living in poverty. By inference, the majority of women in our country are living in poverty. The economic circumstances limit their access to opportunities, housing, and access to basic sanitary products, including sanitary towels. These circumstances make them more vulnerable to crime, disease, and various other social ills. Of those women living beneath the poverty line, many are single parents. The South African Institute of Race Relations found the proportion of South African children without fathers increased between 1996 and 2010 from 42% to 47%. Our single mothers who live in poverty are struggling to provide financially and simultaneously care for their children. They do not have the luxury of being concerned with climbing the career ladder, saving up for pension, building a great credit score, or getting enough vitality points. They are simply trying to keep their heads above water. At the same time, those women who are lucky enough to earn a living wage, or better, struggle for equal recognition in the workplace. They struggle to earn equal wages to their male counterparts, and they are subjected to oppressive gender norms, which restricts their ability to express themselves as individuals rather than objects. Many aspire to marrying rich rather than believing that they themselves can be successful. It is clear that women in both poor and wealthy societies alike are oppressed by the virtue of their gender. Minister, how is your department ensuring that women in our society achieve their greatest potential? And in terms of the 16 facilities that you have mentioned, going forward, in the targeted number that was addressed, is this targeted number going to increase, and by what number will it increase? And given these figures, firstly, of those unemployed women who take refuge in the province's shelters for victims, how satisfied are you that your department is achieving the targets set for the recruitment and employment of women? And how does your department follow up on the successes of these women that were abused in the shelters so that they do not go back to their abused relationships because of the fact that they are economically dependent on the abusers?
Order, member, your time has expired. Honourable Makaleni.
Thank you, Speaker. The question we're debating today is what success has his department has regarding the development and empowerment of women in the province? And Honourable Botha tried to give the basis of the question she's asking. And what comes to my mind is how do we measure the success of the department when women themselves have not been consulted and engaged to understand what they need? The arrogance of this DA to think that they're the only one who knows what women needs. We have been calling for a pro-women budget in this legislature for the past 4 years. None of these ministers sitting here today heard our call. In fact, they are all thinking that the solutions to women problems are all found in the Ministry of Social Development, which cannot be correct. The minister has a decency to increase the budget for victims empowerment program by a mere 13 million, when every day we hear how women fall victims. We ask again how you measure the success of the department when the number of rapes, murder, human trafficking is on the rise, when most women are unable to find jobs because they are not fit for the purpose, and when they finally do get the jobs, they are paid less than their counterparts. This department refused to understand that the current economic and social challenges are affecting women the most until they realize that women are responsible for looking after this country and this province's children's welfare. Until Minister Fritz and his department understand the bigger picture, there will be no success in women development. Until they understand that empowering women is empowering the nation, and until you understand that 852 is not enough to empower 800 women, until you understand how serious and how big is the problem that women are facing, and women want to participate in the economic mainstream.
Order, time has expired. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I've heard now Honourable Makaleni remark that the Provincial Department of Social Development does not prioritize gender equality because it does not have one single program dedicated to women. I feel that it is important to discuss the importance of gender mainstreaming and its role in DSD. Yes, serious. Gender mainstreaming is the public policy concept of assessing the different implications for women and men of any planned policy action, including legislation and programs in all areas and levels. Mainstreaming offers a pluralistic approach that values diversity among both women and men. This concept was born from the 1985 Third World Conference on Women in Nairobi, Kenya, and has since been pushed in the United Nations Development Community. Rather than collating a single piece of legislation or a single program dedicated to women within DSD, gender mainstreaming would argue that we need to consider the impact of gender in every document, conversation, and piece of legislation or program that we run. My question to the Minister is, to what extent has his department employed gender mainstreaming in DSD to support and address issues pertaining to women in place of creating a single vague policy?
Thank you. Honourable Makaleni. Honourable Makaleni.
Thank you, Speaker. Having heard exactly what Member Botha is saying is exactly what we've been always saying over the years. And today it is clear that women are agreeing. And I call upon women from all walks of life to unite and support each other. Women, when we are united, we are strong, Member Botha. Let us look up. Let's hope she keeps that. To the strong women who live and led before us, the likes of Mama Winnie Mandela and Mama Sisulu. Let's rise and empower ourselves. As we rise, let's lend a hand to empower other women, because we are a bond that keeps the country together. We are in Bokoto Zokobo. Women must rise and women must unite.
Thank you. Honourable Botha.
Minister, how do you ensure that women in our communities are communicated to by your department about development of women and the programs that is ensured to them by your department? And how does the department track those women that has been in the shelters and have acquired the skills that you have spoken about, and the development to ensure that they are now women that can be attracted to the job market out there so that they, and I reiterate once again, that they don't have to go back to the abusers because of the economic reasons that they are dependent on them to have bread on the table for themselves and for their children.
Minister Fritz.
Thank you. I must really thank the two honourable members for asking those questions. Those are potent and real, serious, substantive questions. And I don't think we must trivialize it, Honourable Yankee. It's very serious. These are serious questions. And I really want to start. I want to start, Honourable Deputy Speaker, by exactly the point I made earlier. That, you know, the Honourable Makaleni makes a very important point. She says this, can you shut up and listen to what I'm saying?
Order. 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 Honourable Yankee, I will deal with that. Minister Fritz, you've just gone slightly too far. Just
sorry, I'll withdraw.
But Honourable Yankee, please, we had calmness in the House until you came in now.
Honourable Makaleni makes a very important statement. And in that statement, he says that the responsibility of the empowerment of women and acknowledging the importance of women is everyone's responsibility. It's all departments' responsibility. And it is in that context that we work very closely with economic development. I work very closely with Minister Grant. Listen to what I'm saying. I work closely with Minister Grant. I work closely with Minister Meyer, the Minister of Finance. I go and I took him with me to say, let us create the environment firstly. And you make a very important point. To firstly get the environment for not only women, but for girls, girl children, who are at high school, to understand, as you spoke about, the honourable member spoke about the gender targeting and the gender, gender consciousness, also in terms of health, reproductive health, so that people can make decisions as young as 16, 17. And when you go through that program, you know, and a number of Member Botha and you asked the question about when people get into jobs, when we get them out of abusive relationships into our shelters to empower and skill them so they can go, and I made that point about placing them with corporates. Exactly. That's the point. I'm agreeing with you. So the point, you know, either I speak or they speak.
Order.
But Mr. Chair, speak, to protect me.
Order.
They speak
nonsense. I will
they just talk nonsense every time.
Minister, your time has almost expired. You have another 20 seconds.
But I want to also just finally say that we will continue to work in a transversal way with Department of Health, with Department of Education, with all our departments, and not in silos, to continue, and not just to talk here and romanticize about women equality like Honourable Yankee, but to make it a substantive issue.
Order.
Because all they can do is romanticize issues.
Order.
Not you, Member Makaleni.
Order.
Those men next to you, those abusive men
Order,
next
Minister,
to you.
your time has expired. Honourable Janchi, you started too early. Your interpellation comes on now only. Honourable Janchi to Minister Bredell. Order. Order. Minister Bredell.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you for the interpellation. My department has always investigated complaints relating to allegations of fraud, corruption and maladministration, as well as tender irregularities at municipalities. The following steps were taken in respect of each of the municipalities. In George Municipality, my Department of Local Government requested the Provincial Forensic Services to scope the allegations of, amongst others, corruption, maladministration at the George Municipality. The outcome of the scoping exercise indicated prima facie evidence of alleged fraud, corruption and maladministration. After being briefed on these findings, I instructed that the evidence be made available to the Hawks for investigations. Premised on the evidence, the Hawks conducted a search and seizure operation at the premises of the George Municipality and private homes. The Hawks, together with the Provincial Forensic Services, is currently investigating the matter. I am in the process of also implementing a Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act 32 of 2000 in the municipality. The second one, B2 Municipality. As per the Council resolution, the forensic investigation in respect of Section 57 managers and procurement-related matters was initiated at the municipality, during which further prima facie evidence surfaced which was outside the scope of the initial investigation. I have since implemented a Section 106, 1B of the Local Government Municipal Systems Act, read with Section 7 of the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act process. I have designated 2 independent persons to investigate the allegations of maladministration, corruption, fraud, and other serious malpractices in the municipality. This investigation is still ongoing. Kannaland Municipality, the Provincial Forensic Services was requested to conduct a forensic investigation into several concerns identified by the Kannaland Municipality with the aim of assisting my department in its endeavours to strengthen the support the municipality in terms of Section 154 of the Constitution. This investigation was conducted subsequent to an intergovernmental agreement entered into between the municipality, the Provincial Forensic Services and my department. The forensic investigation has since been concluded and the final report was handed over to the Hawks in November 2017 for further investigation. While the Hawks are concluding the investigation, they have handed certain cases over to the Directorate Public Prosecution for prosecution. Oudtshoorn Municipality, my department received a request from the municipality to investigate certain allegations relating to the tender irregularities in the municipality. The Forensic Services was requested to scope the allegations of tender irregularities. The outcome of...
Minister, I think you must stop there. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Honourable Jantji.
I was still listening when his time expired because I'm wanting him to answer completely the question. Otherwise, I could give you my time so that you answer and you really account for your failures. Thank you very much for that piece so far, Honourable MEC. While she's answering Deputy Speaker so that he can answer better, I don't know if you'll mention all of them. The problem that you have is bigger, Minister. George, Kannaland, Beaufort West are under investigation by the Hawks for fraud, racketeering, and corruption. George, where a raid by the Hawks took place, and you have referred to that, is being investigated for alleged fraud and corruption. Kannaland for alleged racketeering, while Oudtshoorn and Beaufort West for alleged fraud and corruption. These are serious happenings in these municipalities. Your department was investigating improper allegations in the Beto municipality regarding appointment of a head of corporate services. The Cedarburg municipality is being probed for alleged tender irregularities on grant funding, and Stellenbosch municipalities over similar irregularities. The department has also referred supply chain challenges in the Theewaterskloof municipality to Provincial Treasury for further investigation and support, and the alleged sale of public land in the Langeberg municipality to the Department of the Premier Legal Services for further investigation. The list is growing, MEC, under your watch. Now, so far, I've listened to you mentioning 106 about 3 times, and you've not completed. I'm not sure whether 106 is going to be the cure, or there's something else that we're not doing, that we should be doing, because 106 now becomes a reacting kind of thing to it. Again, you've mentioned more than twice the issue of forensic services. You're likely to do forensic investigation to all 30 municipalities with the trend that we're in now. 106 here, forensic investigation there, and then the Hawks there. And then what? Because it takes us back, if I may remind you, about that anti-corruption strategy. Do you think that it is really effective? It is working? That you are forced from one municipality to the other to do 106, to do forensic audit, to take them to the Hawks and so on. Remember, this is the best run government of the province. It's the best run government. Because these municipalities that you are mentioning are getting clean audits, clean audits. Now, how do you compare the two things? Clean audit on the other side,
just finish your
and
sentence.
Corruption on the other.
Thank you. Your time has expired for this slot.
I can finish my time.
No, your time has expired. The Honourable Nkisela.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I think the question that we must ask, and perhaps in appreciating what the Minister has said to us, is what did the ANC do when they were in government? The Honourable Member was the Minister of Human Settlements and Local Government, and that is Honourable Dyanki. What we can remember, what we can remember is all the inefficiencies and corruption that led with local government.
Honourable Member.
Now we are sitting here, with the Western Cape, because we need to be frank. We are sitting here with the Western Cape, Honourable Chairperson. In the recent release by the AG on the audit outcomes, the AG says the following, that out of 33 municipalities that received clean audits in South Africa, 33, 21 are in the Western Cape. And that represents 64%. And the ANC-run municipalities received 36%. Because the ANC loves the 33s and 36, that's the pass rate for them. And they think that is good performance. We are doing something that the ANC should learn. I would actually expect the ANC to stand up and thank the minister in this province and this department for being the beacon of hope to say to South Africa, in fact, run governments like spaza shops. But in this province, we dealt with Oudtshoorn. Your councillor was the mayor. He was sentenced in 5 years in prison last year.
Order, member, your time.
So that is what we are doing in this province.
Your time has expired.
Let him sit down.
The Honourable.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much.
You may start.
You know, the findings of the forensic investigation into alleged unlawful activity at the Stellenbosch Municipality MEC should be made public immediately. And I'd want you to, before you sit down today, to really commit to do that. And the findings in the report were referred to a disciplinary committee in May 2017 for further investigations. The findings of the disciplinary committee were referred to Council on May 23, 2018. The DA-run City of Cape Town has incurred 47 million in irregular spending, the best city, topping the list of 3 municipalities in the province that have together spent 173 million in the 2016-2017 without following the legal prescript. Very basic. The basisa dengue, the best running municipality. Okay? The Auditor General, now that he's raised the Auditor General thing, pointed to the city's weaknesses in consequent management. That people do wrong things, they got scot-free. Nothing happens to them because they are DA pals. That's the problem. That's what you have. And you're not mentioning that. And revenue management and political instability in smaller municipalities. The main contributors to irregular expenditure were the City of Cape Town MEC with 47 million, Beaufort West 36 million, Eden District 32 million, and 163 million of total irregular expenditure amount related to non-compliance with supply chain management regulations. Again, another basic thing that should not be rearing its ugly head again. Adam said 98% of the SCM-related irregular expenditure involved current year transgressions that can be isolated to unjustifiable deviations. So they deviate. This contractor, given this, and let's deviate from what is
Order,
normal.
member.
Again, another DA mess up.
Your time has expired. Honourable Nkisela.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I again want to stress this. The ANC can't lecture us on this one. Here, they've got one of the DDGs.
Order.
They've got one of the DDGs, Mr. Setisho, who was sentenced in 2005. In fact, he has been sentenced for issues like fraud, corruption, for embezzling public funds and using credit cards that belong to government to an amount of 104,000 rand, 307 rand. And that is one of the amounts. The other one is where he took loans, government loans, because he needed to buy a car using money that did not exist in the municipality, and took in the excess of 163,000 rands. Now here we are talking about the BITO.
Order.
Because I'm going to the BITO. The BITO is a problem that was caused by the ANC,
Order,
and
member,
we're fixing that.
Remember, you can't go there. The time has expired.
The problem, Deputy Speaker, when I sum up,
order.
Our problem is that we must deal with the supply chain management issues. They are real.
Please adhere to the speaker's call. There was order, honourable member. I asked for you to complete your speech. Honourable, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It is very clear. You can see by that kind of conduct, the DRS deep, anything, as deep anything, they are in trouble. It's not even, for basic things, they can't even respond to them. Ek voel baie jammer vir julle. Foei tog julle. You are in trouble. Okay, don't even go there, because it brings the Helen Zille into that, the premier. I think the point I want to make, Deputy Speaker, in summing up this issue before the minister comes and responds, I want to call on you, Minister. I want to call on you, put that what you're reading aside. Now I want you to rise as Anton Verhelmen Bredel, the MEC, and say, with all of these problems that we have outlined to you, can you turn a new leaf? At least you have got 8 months left. How can you use the last 8 months, because we're going to make them to be the last 8 months for the DA. How can you use the last 8 months to at least ensure that you attend to the mess in the DA, because you're bringing factional stuff into government? You see that in Neisner. You see that in George. It's worse in the city of Cape Town. I mean, today we just had 3 factions speaking in this crime thing. Grant, Windy, Wiley. It's so clear. The DA has just lost it. It's just lost it. And that which you have lost is affecting how we run municipalities, how the things are done. Give us some plan, at least, I'm saying, for the last 8 months. As the last 8 maande.
Dankie, lagbaar lid. Minister Bredel.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson, it's a bit shocking because it's actually a very important topic, and if we don't get rid of corruption, we will never solve the service delivery issues within the country. Now, a clean audit, let me state it again, a clean audit is not a forensic audit. So audits don't look at that. We're busy with the Auditor General, but remember, it's also not our institution. Anti-corruption strategy, I think it works. That's why we're only busy with investigations in 7 municipalities out of the 30. Corruption don't have a color, don't have a party. But this party, the Democratic Alliance, is very serious of getting to the bottom of any corruption. And that's why in a place like George, just listen, that's why in a place like George, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we allowed the Hawks to enter that space within 2 days before by-election, because it's not about winning a municipality. It's about getting to the bottom of corruption. The problem we've got is the national institutions like the Hawks. We don't get to an answer. We wait now for 4 months, 5 months. If we can get the charge sheet, we can get rid of the people. We cannot, and the Honourable Yankee is supposed to know it, that the MEC don't have any authority over the Hawks. If we hand it over, it's independent. They must do it, and I can show to him that in 2 municipalities in Cedarburg, they found nothing. So all the allegations was rumours. So the forensics has come up with no transgressions in Cedarburg. In Theewaterskloof, there's no cover-up.
Order.
In Theewaterskloof, it's by independent institutions. It's the same institutions that do George, that's busy doing the others. In Theewaterskloof, it's not about fraud or irregularities. It's about the supply chain, and that provincial treasury will support the municipality. The other part of his interpellation was about the appointments of Article 57. You haven't even touched on your own question. I don't even think you've read it.
Order.
But
Order,
in
Minister.
this province...
Order. Honourable Yankee, you're making a nuisance of yourself now. Unfortunately, Minister Bredel, your time has expired. You can't go into that topic.
Thank you, Honourable Chair.
That brings us to the end of interpellations. We move on to questions on the question paper. The first one is Honourable Ace to Minister Schaefer. Minister Schaefer, the first question. That's question number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And to Honourable Ace, the answer is that the so-called new transport collection point was not a part of the approved contract route, therefore it has not been moved.
Deputy Speaker, that's not correct. It was implemented. It happened there. Did you actually visit it, or who informed you, Honourable MEC?
Minister.
It is correct. The person was collecting people there, but it was done on his own initiative. It was not approved by the department, and it was not approved as part of the contract route. So he did do it for a while, and then my department found out about it and told him that he was not complying with the contract.
Honourable Ace.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. How can a person working for your department, MEC, do it on his or her own initiative, not knowing where to pick up the learners, pick them up in a completely different area where they need to walk through a bush, and your department not knowing it?
Minister.
We contract with service providers who travel to pick up learners. The person who was doing it wanted to go and fetch the children because he knew they were there. My department had not authorized it. When we found out about it, we told him to stop. It's quite simple.
It's not that simple, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
I'll get back to Honourable Botha as the fourth opportunity. Otherwise, you said your last one.
I mean, when you sign a contract with a service, with a person delivering a service, there's at least a couple of things in it. The first thing must be, and help me, Honourable MEC, the pick-up point, the drop-off point, the time. And you tell me that was not specified in your contract. And then the learners had to go through all this trauma, and now you just say, well, the service provider is at fault.
Minister.
The service provider is at fault, yes. There has been an application by the school to extend the route and to put on some additional learners, and it's busy being adjudicated on at the moment. The school will be informed hopefully within the next week. But that is what happened, yes. We don't see every single individual bus or picking up every child every day.
Honourable Botha, you want to ask this question? The last opportunity on this question.
Deputy Speaker, yes, I just wanted to know, were there any reports to the Minister that the learners have undergone this great danger?
Minister.
Honourable Botha, we have a policy in place, which is actually a national policy on learner transport, where learners who live 5 kilometres or more from the pickup point, I mean from the school, can get access to learner transport. These learners are walking 1.1 kilometres, so they don't fall within that policy.
Thank you. We move on to the next question. Question 7, Honourable Joseph to Minister Schaefer. Mr. Schaefer again.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The answer is to part 1. The election process was declared invalid after a parent lodged a dispute. The district investigation showed that the school did not use a valid voter's roll to guide the nomination and election meeting. Part 2, yes, the second election took place on the 31st of May, not the 30th. A dispute was declared against the eligibility of some elected members. These claims are currently being investigated. And 3, the complaints are still being investigated in respect of the second meeting in terms of the regulations governing the elections of school governing bodies.
Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, can you advise on the number of first elections that were successful, as well as the number of second elections that were successful?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Honourable Botha. Yes, the total number of elections completed was 1,507 altogether, 712 of which were successful the first time round, 799 on the second.
Honourable Kividu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister Schaefer, how many disputes did you receive from schools in this year's school governing body elections?
Thank you, Honourable Member. We received in total 71 disputes.
Can we move to the next question? Honourable Botha, you finished? You may ask your question.
Deputy Speaker, thank you. I just want to ask also the Minister, what has the department spent on the 2018 SGB elections?
Thanks, Honourable Member. We spent 1.57 million rand in total.
Thank you. We then move on to the next question, which is new questions. Number 1, Honourable Lekker to Minister Plato. Minister Plato.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you, and also to the Honourable Member for the question. No, I did not conduct any such investigation. That is a question to be forwarded to the Democratic Alliance due to the fact that my understanding is that CPF's information is not classified information. They operate in the communities, and their information is readily available for anyone that wants the information. It's public knowledge, and it's open in the public domain, and it's easy to get hold of that information. Thank you.
Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I would like to get an understanding from the MEC in terms of the Democratic Alliance receiving email addresses, because that was a specific question, and following a letter that I sent to him asking him to investigate how did the Democratic Alliance as a political party received email addresses of CPFs, which is a property of the department. Now, I want to check from him, is that a normal practice that his department will give information to anyone that's requesting it, or did they follow a process of requesting those documents through the PIA Act?
Minister.
Deputy Speaker, that is a question the Honourable Member must forward to the Democratic Alliance. The fact of the matter is, I can walk into any police station and get the EXCO members of the CPF's information. It's as easy as that. And that is not only the property of the department, it's also the property of the South African Police Services.
Honourable Lekker.
Enkosi, Deputy Speaker. I think it's about time you take a retirement.
Member, you may proceed.
Deputy Speaker, I think we must agree here that the office of the MEC has got no interest on the protection of information in terms of the PIA Act. Instead, is making this opportunity to create an impression that anyone is entitled to information.
Remember, this is an opportunity for a
question. My question to him would be, when is his office going to refrain from involving itself to party political issues?
Minister?
If you have any proof, Honourable Member, that my office have provided my party with CPF's information, please bring that proof. I'm not aware of it. I was not involved. My office was not involved. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. We can then move on to the next question, which is question 2. Again, Honourable Lekker to Minister Plato. Minister Plato.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and also to the Honourable Member for the question. The Department of Community Safety conducts its Youth Safety and Religion Partnership Program in conjunction with faith-based organizations during the June, July, and December, January school holiday period. This initiative of the department was established to create a safe environment for children and youth during the school holidays. The YSRP school holiday program is part of the Department of Community Safety's Safety Improvement Partnership Strategy and is conducted throughout the Western Cape Province in conjunction with faith-based organizations. Priority is given to areas with a high prevalence of gang activity and violence.
Thank you. Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In light of the department's involvement with the public with these kind of programs during school holidays, is his department considering enrolling this kind of program throughout the year?
Minister Plato.
No, Honourable Speaker, we just do not currently have the budget for all year long programs of this nature. That is definitely something we can investigate. It's subject currently to available budget.
Thank you. Honourable Lecker, your second
Thank you,
opportunity.
Deputy Speaker. If that is something that this department can have a look at, can we at least get time frames as the African National Congress in relation to this engagement that is willing to undertake?
Yeah, Deputy Speaker, I've got no problem with that request. It's a fair request from the honourable member. As I've said before, definitely it's a new perspective the member bring to our programs, and definitely I will take it back to the administration and consider that, and keep the honourable member in the loop. Thank you.
Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, can you tell us how many children have accessed over the last 3 years this program, and how is the success, or how was the success of this program measured?
Just for the current December-January holiday period is in the region of 9,500 youth. And the aim is to keep the youngsters off the streets, to keep them occupied at a centre like a church or a community town hall or whatever, where they find the necessary space. They have people working with the children, teach them whatever, developmental projects, programs, sporting codes and things. It is really aimed to keep them away from the yard, to sit on a yard and to drink and to smoke and that sort of thing. And it's currently quite successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Botha. The last opportunity.
Minister, within the province, is it more focused on the metro children? And if not, on the in the rural areas, is how many sort of programs are there on the West Coast?
It is not aimed at the metro alone. It is throughout the Western Cape Province. Beaufort West, Saldanha, Vredenburg, Lutzville, Vredendal, as far as I can recall. But I'm willing to give you a full spec of the necessary rolling out programs pertaining to the rural areas. But in seeing that you asked the question, it could be advisable for members of this House as well to engage their religious institutions to come and take part in the program. Thank you.
We move on to question number 3, Honourable Makaleni to Minister Fritz. Minister Fritz.
Thank you for the question, Honourable Makaleni. I see you sat next to each other when you wrote all these questions down because identical question. So we have a various number of programs. Within the ECD program alone, remember we have ECDs who also focus on a number of holiday programs for other children, not only for their own residents, for children that get, and then we have parcel care programs. The parcel care program is also the after-school program that also operates during the school holidays to specifically keep children safe during school holidays. So that's the one program. And in children's and family program, we have the Department of Social Development is also funding a community-based prevention and early intervention program called the Isibendi program. Isibendi is implemented by community-based organizations that employ child and youth care workers to support vulnerable children in their own communities. Primary goal is to provide daily practical and therapeutic assistance to children and their families. Among the other programs that are provided through Isibendi is a program called Safe Park program. The Western Cape DSD has created 24 safe parks for children where they can play, do homework, receive meals, access counseling, and specifically during holiday program periods, this program is operative. The Western Cape the Department of Social Development is also funding 11 drop-in centers. Drop-in centers have programs designed to meet the developmental needs of children, physical, emotional, social development needs, and providing basic services focusing on provision of food, programs to keep them busy during the school holidays, hygiene, personal hygiene, laundries, even up to laundry in line with the Children's Act. As is amended. And this is an important point I just want to make, because you will notice in every single program of social development there's a nutrition component, so that the child gets something into its tummy to eat, and so that we don't have hungry children around. Thank you.
Honourable Makalini.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to check with the Minister how the children and parents informed about these programs.
Our children are encouraged to take part. Yeah. What is happening? Because most of those children would, during the course of the year, in specifically the partial care program, which is extensive. We have the best run, and it's called partial care because it's after school program, and you can ask the Minister of Education, I don't see her here, but the after school program, a very well audited program. In other words, it's nie, sy sê het bestaan. May I translate that? Is it Xhosa? Okay. And so the point we're making about that, during the school holidays, that program also absorbed a whole lot of those children that part of that. And parents are then informed via the normal structure that we inform them. In fact, in one of those programs, there's an app, an ECD program, you remember? There's the app that also informs parents, but we have seen the app has just been used during certain times, and that's why we stopped, because it was too expensive.
Thank you. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, who are some of the stakeholders with the Department of Social Development that makes this program successful?
Some of the stakeholders. I can get you the list if you ask me before the time, because it's our MPOs. No, it's our MPOs who run it. So if you ask me the question, in that question, then we will answer it like that. Thank you.
Honourable Botha, your second opportunity.
Minister, please focus. Are parents obliged to fill out indemnity forms for their children to participate in programs like these within your department?
I think that's a very important question. All our programs, indemnity. Well, are you going to protect me against the Honourable Davids? Honourable Botha, the indemnity part is really important because part of the holiday program, ladies, honourable members, is also to take our children outside the boundaries of where they grow up. Our children has been designated to townships and they live in town, they grow up there. To broaden the boundaries, to expand their minds, we take them also to Cape Town, to the, what's it called, the Table Mountain, to all those places, so that our boundaries broadens, Honourable Makaleni, and don't have a narrow-minded thing. So yes, all the time.
Yeah. Last opportunity, Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. If Minister can just speak to this House on some of the feedback from parents whose children were involved in this programs of the department.
Yeah, let me just make the one point. And I said that the partial care program specifically, and by the way, the Isibindi program has now very specifically been subjected to an audit. And part of that audit was to get feedback from parents. And you see, we must stop doing programs for the sake of doing programs. We must do programs so that we have impact in our communities and see the change in behavior within those communities. And I want to just make the point, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that in all our programs, specifically in the transversal provincial strategic goals, we have very specific methodologies in assessing the impact. And it's not just by the way, it's actually structured. And part of that audit, yes, part of that audit is to get the feedback from parents. And the feedback is very positive, very positive.
Thank you. We move on to the next question. Question 4, Honourable Nkosela to Minister Bredell. Minister Bredell.
Thank you, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. Out of the 30 municipalities, 5 municipalities utilise the services of the Red Ants. The detail of the 5 municipalities are as follows. City of Cape Town, the city paid a duration of 6 months, an amount of 1.2 million rand for the demolition of illegal structures and various relocations. Then Drakenstein municipality, Drakenstein municipality utilized the services of the Red Ants during the 2016-17 financial year to the amount of 40,000 rand and for 21,000 rand to clear some urban. In Stellenbosch, the Stellenbosch municipality utilized the services of the Red Ants from May 2017 till July 2018. An amount of 1.6 million rand was paid for its services. The municipality appointed the Red Ant to render the following services: monitoring, patrolling, and prevention of illegal land invasions, demolition of illegal structures. Overstrand Municipality, which I think the Honourable Member will be more interested in, because it's his constituency. The Overstrand Municipality utilised the Red Ants for 2017-18 financial year. An amount of 4.6 million rand was paid for its services. An amount of 2.8 million rand was spent in respect of tender awards, which comprises of the following: 474,000 rand was spent on the disconnection and reconnection of electricity and water meters. 490,000 rand was spent on meter reading services in Gansbaai area. 1.8 million was spent on the management of informal settlements in the Overstrand area. An amount of 1.8 million was spent in respect of division of security services for the civil unrest in Overstrand, which comprises of the following: 134,000 was spent on Claymont riots for the period 15 to 18 September. 1.7 million was spent on the Manus riots for the period 26 March to 2 April. And then also Knysna Municipality also utilised the services of the Red Ants. Thank you.
Honourable Nkosela.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, the figures that you've quoted, are these funds that the municipalities plan from their own budgets, and there's no recourse in terms of claiming from any form of, any source of funding from the department or emergency funding? I'm asking this because if you look at the, for instance, this more than 5 million rands from Overstrand alone, and you look at Stellenbosch and other municipalities, if it continues as it does, it's becoming a serious problem. And I don't think it's something that we can leave unabated.
Limited to a question. You've asked your question, Minister Bredell.
Thank you to the Honourable Member. No, it must come from their own budget. The municipality enter into the contract with that, and obviously it's the taxpayers paying for it.
Can we proceed? We move on to the next question, which is question number 5. Again, Honourable Nkosela to Minister Grant. Minister Grant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. In response, the concerns regarding the department's proposed plan to relocate the existing R43 to bypass the central business district of Hermanus from Mountain Drive to Fairways Avenue will be dealt with in terms of the environmental impact assessment process in compliance with the National Environmental Management Act, Act 107 of 1998, as amended.
Honourable Nkosela.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I would like to ask Honourable Minister, in terms of this project, what do you have in mind? Will it continue in its current form? What are the views and feelings from the ground?
Deputy Speaker, the process is now not in my hands, it's in my colleague, Minister Bredell, in terms of the EIA process. And following the outcomes of that process, any of the concerns raised will obviously be dealt with and thereafter. Thank you.
Second question, Honourable Nkosela.
I'm happy, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. We move on to the next question, which is question 6. Honourable Beverly Schaefer to Minister Windy. Minister Windy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the Honourable Member for the question. We have learned from the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform that a total of 60 farms had been acquired by the government through the proactive land acquisition strategy. The idea with PLUS is that once the land is acquired, it would be leased to farmers for agricultural development. However, of the 60-plus farms acquired, less than half, 23, have received long-term leases, i.e. 30-year leases from the Land Reform Department, whilst a large percentage is sitting with 3-year leases and in some cases expired leases or no leases. The implication of the current scenario is that the tenant farmers are discouraged from investing own resources for the development of the said farms. In addition, no private funder or banker is prepared to invest on the land whose security of tenure is questionable. Consequently, plus tenants are forced to rely on conditional grants for their farming operations, and grant funding is generally not sustainable. More so given the prevailing economic climate in South Africa. Speaker, the other reality is that delays in finalizing lease contracts do lead to discouragement of the affected farmers, which in our view goes against everything that the NDP seeks to achieve. And then B, as stated above, only 23 of the 60-plus farms have long-term leases and are thus enabled to invest their own resources, while this is not the case for the majority of the plus farms, given the lack of tenure security. Albeit most farmers would continue farming even after their leases had lapsed, and as a department, we continue to provide much-needed extension and advisory support services to those tenants. This does undoubtedly affect productivity and on these farms, and remains risky for anyone to invest on government property without security, more so at the moment with the ongoing land reform debate.
Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think, Minister, you've just touched on, but really, do you think that poses any risk to primary agriculture as a whole? If you're thinking that there is so little land available in the Western Cape, you've got 37 farms that actually really have no leases. You can't farm on a 3-year lease. So, does the department at all get involved in any of these farms? Is there any production happening on the farms that have been of the 37 that really are operating perhaps with very little income?
Minister.
So I think first of all, with regard to the leases, we write regularly to try and encourage. Some of the farms, I actually have meetings on those farms and then invite the Department of Rural Development to come to the farm to try and really put pressure on them to get the leases finalized. But I think that maybe we need to go a bit further than that. Right now, with the talk of land, and of course this department doesn't actually talk about ownership, it only talks about leases. That's the EFF model. I think we actually need to say, how do we get these 23 farms with the long-term leases into ownership? And we need to have policies that determine how that happens. And then the others, let's put a medium-term lease in place so that you can get some confidence in the system. And also, what we should do is be encouraging then ownership as well.
Thank you. We move on to the next question. Question number 7, Honourable Maseko to Minister Madikizela. Minister Madikizela.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The amendment will not have an impact, Honourable Member, to the current projects, because all those projects are built on government-owned land. But what it will have, or what is already having, is unintended consequences because of how people interpret it. They're now starting to invade land all over the show. And that puts into jeopardy the planned future developments in many of our municipalities. That is the unintended consequence that we are starting to see. Thank you.
Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much. Leader of the opposition, if you can have the skill of listening. Deputy Speaker, Minister, is it, as a minister, and I know you interact in the MINMEC, and you share the ideas and then you hear what is happening, is it necessary to amend Section 25 of the Constitution to ensure effective land reform, knowing what is happening in other provinces?
Order.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member Maseko. Well, it's not only me who do not believe that it's not necessary to amend Section 25. It's 59% of South Africans who participated in public hearings also believe that it's not necessary to amend Section 25 of our Constitution. Already, in public hearings in all 9 provinces, already, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I mean, there is a flip-flopping that we are starting to see between the two parties that supported, this amendment as to what needs to be done ultimately. I mean, you heard the President yesterday saying something else, and the FF is already saying something else. So this is a clear indication, as we've always said, that this is an election foofy. There's no need to amend Section 25 of our Constitution. We can speed up land reform under the current Constitution.
Thank you, Honourable Maseko. Another opportunity?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. With that answer, there's no any other question I can ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of questions. We move on to statements by members. And I see the DA first. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I am a product of my mother's womb. My purpose and future is what I strived for, but you ripped me, you hit me, you tied me down, forcefully entering the doors between my thighs, not because of the way I dressed or combed my hair, and not because I was out late, but because of your cold heart, greed, and lust. No means no. Not maybe, or perhaps, but no. Yet, you satisfy yourself despite my cries. The pain I bore while you continue all the more, brutally beating me, ripping my body apart. I cry, I scream, I plead. No, no means no. Helpless, I lay there, the rhythm of my heart slowly dissipating until I feel the pain no more. Powerless, teary-eyed, while you continue ripping me apart. No means no. My dignity, my pride, my self-esteem, my womanhood, away, away, away.
Sorry, Speaker, just
Order.
a point of order.
Just
Can
one
you
second.
please ask your two MECs, Grant and Windy, to respect that woman's speaking?
Order. I will look at them. And order. Order the members on the floor. You may continue, Member Botha.
Away, 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 I am no more. While you were watching where you stood, I was in pain, my tears uncontrollably flowing. Helpless, I lay there, cold, just waiting, waiting for someone to rescue me. I did not deserve to die in this way. Poem was written by Miss Nareen Shoulder. Thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Everything the DA alleged against its Cape Town Mayor, Patricia de Lille, came to a null and void. In fact, the DA was wrong all along. Its lies are now uncovered as the DA ran away from its many false reports and charges that could not produce a shred of evidence against de Lille. DA Mayoral hopeful J.P. Smith and his cahoots have eggs on their faces, together with those that compiled reports at the expense of the overburdened Cape Town ratepayers. All those DA people with ulterior agendas to put de Lille were wrong all the way. Even DA Chief Whip in the National Assembly, John Steenhuisen. The DA lost credibility and support. Funders and other backers also withdrew. The DA risked all as it entered the 2019 election race flogging a dead horse. The DA only tried to save itself by running away from its fight with de Lille, in which she gave the DA a few bloody noses in and out of court. All that remains for the DA is to pay the lavish legal costs it fruitlessly incurred, but the anti-black DA and its overlords must pay this from their own pockets and not leave it to the taxpayers of the Cape to foot the bill.
Thank you. The DA, Honourable Kividu.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Introducing safety procedures at school alone is not enough to ensure that every child is safe in school. While safety procedures demand a decent, amount of accountability from educational environments and institutions, it should be underpinned by a whole-of-society approach for tackling this issue. Taking into account the history of violence against children in the last few years, especially, parents should not assume that their children are safe from abuse once they step inside the school gates. When one is vigilant untoward incidents, ring alarm bells and start the possibility of confrontation and action. Wisselwerkende gesprekke tussen onderwyskundiges en ouers kan hierdie brandpunte en probleme belig. Dit benadruk gedeelde eienaarskap. Dit gaan verder as slegs 'n bespreking van grade en onderrig. Dit vereis 'n proaktiewe samewerking ten einde die daarstelling sowel as die monitering van veiligheidsprosedures. Veral die gerig op infrastruktuur, hulpbronne, vervoer, sowel as die emosionele en fisiese welstand van leerders. Sodoende kan 'n veiliger leeromgewing geskep word. Op groter skaal bestaan daar 'n nypende behoefte dat die regering van die dag veiligheidsbeleid ten opsigte van beide stedelike en landelike leerdomeine moet afdwing. And Deputy Speaker, I think this is exactly what the DA does, creating quality education, safe school environment, and positive outcomes for all learners. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
dank.
In the absence of the EFF, it's again the DA. Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. South African women are not a single baton, but a dynamic force of numerous cultures who together define and shape our country, South Africa. Today, I want to commend all women, young and old, for simply being who they are. Imbogoto, and I salute you. I salute women before us, women like Helen Suzman. Suzman, who single-handedly, as a woman representing women, challenged apartheid government for all of us to have our freedom. A testament to this is her famous response to a National Party minister, and I quote, "It is not my questions that embarrass South Africa, it is your answers." Deputy Speaker, the baton that Helen Suzman had is passed on to us. We have a responsibility of being involved as decision makers. Let women speak for women. South Africa currently ranks in second place out of our fellow G20 members, with 42% of our seats in parliament occupied by women. While this is admirable, women constitute 51% of our population. This means that 9% of our 5 million people are not being politically represented. Empowering women to become policy and decision makers needs to be at the forefront of the conversation of women empowerment. This picture is far bleaker for women in corporate leadership. Bain & Company found that in 2017, 31% of South African companies had no female representation in senior leadership roles. Only 22% of board directors were women, and only 7% were executive directors. Only 10% of South African CEOs and only 2.2% of JSE-listed company CEOs were women. This is not what Helen Suzman fought for. The Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape is committed to empowerment of women.
Order.
And will continue to fight for an open opportunity society.
Thank you.
For
Remember,
all.
your time has expired also.
I thank you, Deputy
Thank you.
Speaker.
The ANC. Honourable David.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The DA alienates itself even more from Western Cape voters as it relentlessly pursues unreasonable high tariffs hikes on water, sewage, and electricity. The DA has proven that it now takes people from their homes and punishes residents with punitive high prices on water and electricity. This looting of private people pursued in order to pay for the DA's ill consideration and failed planning ahead of the present crisis with the drought and other problems. The DA has forever pushed the prices up for service delivery and now crossed the line of affordability for many poor and working or middle-class residents. People are waking up to sharp increasing in rates and taxes with especially the shocking water and electricity tariffs, and even the own DA people is speaking out about it in the media. Reports are coming in of municipal accounts that doubled and even went up 300 or 400% without any sign of improved service delivery to match the higher costs. Cape Town's people are not the only ones suffering under the DA's high-handed deals. Other DA municipalities follow suit, and the DA voiced by the Cape Town Deputy Mayor Ian Nielsen says, if you don't like the prices, move away. Move away where? DA, where must the people of South Africa, especially the people of the Western Cape, move under your government?
Thank you. I see the DA, Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, the evaluation and network analysis of the Cape Town Stellenbosch tech sector, a report commissioned by global research firm Endeavour Insight, found that Cape Town's entrepreneurial tech sector now employs more than double the people employed in the same sector in Lagos and Nairobi combined. Cape Town's tech sector employs between 40 to 50,000 people, making the city Africa's leading tech hub, creating the most tech jobs on the continent. This is a fantastic achievement from a DA-led Western Cape, which prioritizes cutting red tape for business development, mentoring emerging entrepreneurs, and stimulating investment in key economic sectors. I must commend the Cape Innovation and Technology Initiative, Westgrow, the City of Cape Town, and the Western Cape Government for this outstanding work. Cape Town authorities have been pushing to establish the city as an innovation hub and the Silicon Valley of Africa. The city has produced multiple firms, such as Naspers, GetSmart, and Clickatel, which have stood out for their innovative breakthroughs and have had a strong global presence as a result. The report states that while Cape Town has just over 500 tech companies, the city has generated an objectively higher level of productivity than Lagos and Nairobi combined if employment is used as a measure. Cape Town's tech sector has generated over 40,000 employees compared to the 9,000 in Lagos and the 7,000 in Nairobi. This means that the Cape Town's tech sector is booming in jobs and productivity under a sound-led DA government. I thank you.
Thank you. The ACDP, Honourable Christians.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the first time in a long time, Knysna is united under the mayorship of Mr. Mark Willemse. My question that I want to ask Minister Anton Brodel today and Minister Bongikosi Madikizela, why do you want to get rid of Mayor Willemse? Are you putting a political agenda ahead of the residents of Knysna? For many years, there are serious allegations of corruption, maladministration, and poor leadership. Mayor Willemse has united the town politically around one common goal, and that is putting the residents of Knysna first.
Order, member, just 1 second. Honourable Makaleni.
Speaker, I wanted to request that member Christians be protected.
Yes,
it's not
I
fair
agree.
how it's
I
been
agree
dealt
totally with you. Honourable Christians will be protected. Members of the order, all members, order. Please allow the member the opportunity to proceed. Order. Minister, I'm also including you.
Mayor Willemse has united the town politically around a common goal, and that is putting the residents of Knysna first by exposing alleged maladministration and corruption. Deputy Speaker, when he was elected as mayor, the question I asked myself was, what is his achievements? For the short space of time, he reintroduced the fraud hotline. He reviewed the process of the draft integrity framework. He reviewed the process Knysna municipality whistleblower. In conjunction with internal audit and risk management, a few areas of concern were raised in respect of irregularities in overtime and critical areas in risk of housing. Deputy Speaker, the question remains, and this is the question the ACDP is asking, what is the DA hiding? What is the DA hiding? This makes the DA no better than the ANC when it comes up, when covering up corruption.
Order. Remember your time is almost done. Finish.
If you remove the ACDP is in the West Cape is calling hands off Mayor Willemse.
Thank you. Order. 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 Please come to order before we proceed. The ANC is next. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, amidst the celebration of our National Women's Month, shocking revelation of the abuse and ill treatment of a female employee of this Western Cape legislature came to the fore. The direct and personal verbal attack by a senior white male manager on his subordinate is not a flash in the pan event. It is common knowledge that the said manager is a repeat offender, and every time his outburst of insults contains racist undertones. Allegations are that in the latest instances, sexual innuendo is also at play. Due process followed after a complaint was lodged against the same manager, and punitive resolutions were passed by the disciplinary process. Yet, on appeal, the manager is victorious, and seems as if all is forgiven by the legislature management and how he will be returned to his position. Initially, the manager was not moved away, as was suggested, but the black woman was moved. Upon further pressure on management, it is now intimated that the errand manager may even be elevated to an office closer to the Speaker's parlor.
Order. Order.
The Speaker is now challenged to take control of this situation, show the legislature is serious, and bring justice to a woman who had been seriously hurt, her integrity affected, and reputation put in the balance.
Order. Order. The last opportunity is the DA. Honourable Philander, that's a maiden contribution.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We must uplift the most vulnerable in society. In 1993, I was in grade 11 when my dad became a single dad, working at both as a general worker and security officer at the Paarl Hospital. Coming from a close-knit community in Paarl East, I know what it means to be dependent on family members and neighbors for moral and financial support. Deputy Speaker, today our support systems are increasingly falling flat. How many of our indigent households have had to survive these past few months without their social safety net? Deputy Speaker, on grant payout days, Auntie Ankie from Jansen Street in New York Paarl East gets up at 5 a.m. in the morning after she made her way to the municipality to pay her rates and taxes. She goes off to ShopRite to buy the necessities, pay a funeral policy, and then with what she has in her bag, there's an envelope that she needs to give to the church on Sunday. Heartbreakingly, many in our society are more vulnerable than Auntie Ankie. It must be our mission to uplift the Auntie Ankies in our communities. Today, I reiterate my own oath of office and commitment to delivering to our communities. Speaker, I stand tall today as that woman child of Paarl East. I stand tall today as a woman child that knows what it is to have very little. I stand tall today, proud to empower and to deliver to the people of the Western Cape. Let us not forget why we are here today. I thank you, Speaker.
That, on that high note, it brings us to the end of member statements. We move on to the order paper again, motions on the order paper, and I see the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that in terms of Section 3 of the members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Code of Conduct, Act 202, Act 3 of 2002, that Advocate P. Burgers be appointed as the Registrar of Members' Interests with effect from 1st September 2018.
Thank you. Any objection to that? No objections. Agreed to. Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that for the purposes of maternity absence, rules 29 and 30 shall not apply.
Any objections to that? No objections. Agreed to. We move on to motions or notices of motions. Motions where notice is given. I see the Honourable Schaefer waving there. Honourable Schaefer.
Thank you. That this House debates BEE and its failure on the Western Cape economy. I so move.
Notice is taken of that. Honourable Kivedu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that the House debates the criminal elements as well as other external turmoil that hold our schools and specifically our learners at ransom.
Thank you. Notice is taken. Honourable Dugmore.
Move without notice that this House debates the ongoing sexual violence and molestation at schools under the auspices of the Western Cape Education Department.
Notice is taken. Honourable Inana.
Deputy Speaker, motion with notice. I move that the House debates the implication of 59% submissions to the Constitutional Review Committee against the expropriation of land without compensation by the committee. I so move.
Notice is taken. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House debates the punitive water and electricity tariffs under DA municipality in the province.
Notice is taken of that. Honourable Schaefer.
I move that this House condemns the EFF's attempts to nationalise the Reserve Bank and the ANC's failure to unequivocally reject it.
Notice taken. Honourable Chacha.
Move that the House debates the growing unemployment in the DA-run province.
Notice is taken of that one. Honourable Makaleni.
I move that the House debates the regression in the audit outcomes of the DA-run municipality in the province.
Notice is taken. Honourable Schaefer.
Move that this House debates the impact of policies, in particularly the Protection and Investment Act, and the impact of foreign direct investment on the Western Cape economy.
Notice taken. Honourable Dugmore.
Speaker, I move without notice that this House debates the ongoing violence in the taxing industry and the progress towards the establishment of a representative and inclusive taxi board of control in the Western Cape.
Notice is taken of that one. Are there any further? For the last time? Not. Then we move on to the next section. Honourable Botha, I see you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House express its sincere and deep condolences to the family of Mrs. Brenda Arendse, a community activist who passed away on Wednesday, the 15th of August 2018, and who will be solemnly missed by the community of Mitchell's Plain. I so move.
I take it there's no objection to the motion being moved without notice and no objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Churcham first.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House note with sadness the passing away of Maulana Ishran Hendricks after a long illness, and notes further that Hendricks served as the president of the Muslim Judicial Council and was a scholar and activist for Palestinian Solidarity Movement who dedicated his life to fight for the liberation of the people of Palestine and convey sincere condolences to his family and friends.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Maseko first.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move that this House commends the Standing Committee of Human Settlements for its commitment to the people of District 6 that made it possible for the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform that agreed and to conclude a memorandum of understanding with the Provincial Department of Human Settlements, allowing the province to complete the phase 3 of the land restitution of District 6. I so move.
There's no objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with the sadness the passing of Mamu Zondeni Sobukwe at the age of 91, the wife of Robert Sobukwe, late president of the Pan-African Congress at her Eastern Cape home, knows further that Mamu Zondeni was a struggle icon in her own right, who endured pain and suffering at the hands of the apartheid regime as she fought for liberation of our people, and conveying sincere condolences to her family and her political party and friends. Thank you.
I take it there's no objection to the motion being moved without notice and no objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Kividu first.
Dankie, achtbare adjunct speaker. Dat die huis sy diepe bedank en waardering uitspreek teenoor die twee boeties, Pieter 14 jaar en Jerry 8 Cedras, woonagtig op 'n groenteplaas in Philippi. Hierdie twee het vir etlike kilometers te voet hul siek hond gedra sodat die dierbehandeling by die dierebeskermingsvereniging kon ondergaan. Hul optrede is prysenswaardig en verdien lof.
Geen bezwaar teen die voorstel sonder kennis, geen bezwaar teen die voorstel self. Goedgekeur. Honourable Lekker.
I move that the House notes and condemns the killing of 2 police officers in 2 separate incidents on Friday last week. Notes further that both officers who were off duty were murdered and robbed of their firearms. Conveys condolences to the families and friends of Constable Lonwabo Kili and Siamtela Ncipa, and calls on the police to speed up the investigation to bring the perpetrators to book.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice that this House congratulates the award-winning Vredendal Hospital for its commitment to rural and poor communities as it continues to provide a state-of-the-art and first-world eye care centre to its patients. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Makaleni.
Speaker, I move that the House commiserates with the Mayosi family following the untimely death of leading UCT cardiologist, Professor Bongani Mayosi. Notes his death is a great loss, not only to his family, but also to the nation, as he was a great family man, an intellectual, and a meticulous scholar, and conveys condolences to his wife, children, and the entire family and friends.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House convey condolences to the family, friends, and comrades of the murdered ANC councillor and Southern Cape leader, Comrade Victor Fries Molois, who was gunned down outside his house after a governing board meeting at Concordia High School in July, and commends the SAPS for the arrest of 5 suspects. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Schaefer first.
I move that this House condemns the EFF wanting to capture the Reserve Bank of South Africa and the ANC for not coming out in protecting the independence of it. I so move.
There's no objection to that. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and condemns the continued arson attacks on Metro Rail trains in the city after yet another attack this week at Coburg, and calls on the national government and state security to intervene to end these acts.
I take it there's no objection to the motion being moved without notice, nor against the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Makaleni.
Deputy Speaker, I move that the House notes with concern that punitive water charges have led to the city raking in close to 1 billion more than what it budgeted for. Notes further that service charges for water revenue amounted to 938 million over recovery, while sanitation revenue stood at 188 million over its planned budget. accept that this is daylight robbery by the city, which has been harassing struggling residents for years with exorbitant water bills, condemns this and calls for the scrapping of the erroneous and massive water bills.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Honourable Maseko, are you objecting? No. There's no objection to the motion itself, therefore it's agreed to. I see the Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille leaves that office on the 31st October 2018 following a protracted battle between her and the party. Notes further that de Lille, who faced a litany of charges from the party, won her battle. Notes the deal between de Lille and the DA is an agreement to avoid further exposing the levels of corruption in the city under the DA government, and condemns the DA for sweeping corruption under the carpet. I so move.
Order. I sense there's an objection that will be printed on the order paper. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Hinana.
Deputy Speaker, a motion without notice that this House notes the preliminary committee report that 59% of South Africans are against amending the Section 25 of the Constitution. Of the 149,000 written submissions already reviewed, 89,000 South Africans are not in favor of the expropriation without compensation.
There's an objection to that. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Makaleni. Order. You may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House notes the city fails to maintain the Cape Town Stadium, which is costing ratepayers millions of rands. Note further that Cape Townians already forked out more than 105 million to pay for the upkeeping of the stadium and will pay an additional 89 million to the Cape Town Stadium Soccer Agency for the current financial year alone, and calls on the city to achieve financial stability for the loss-making stadium.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Are there any further? Honourable Lekker.
That the House notes that gang violence in the province is worsening, and gangs don't have respect for the Honourable MEC Plato, as a man was shot dead and 3 others wounded in Lavender Hill while MEC Plato was addressing a public meeting about gang violence in the area. Condemns the... Must I repeat again?
Order.
I'm going to read it again. Relax.
Honourable Lekker, I will deal with that. Please continue.
Was addressing a public meeting about gang violence in the area, condemns the senseless killing and calls on the
Order.
Just because you're not sleeping, you choose to make a noise. Condemns the senseless killing and calls on the provincial government to put in more resources
Honourable
in the
Plato,
fight.
allow the member to continue. Are you
You're
done?
better off when you're
Honourable
sleeping.
Lekker?
Do you know that?
Honourable Lekker, are you done?
No.
Please continue.
That the House notes that gang violence in the province is worsening, and gangs don't have respect for the Honourable MEC Plato, as a man was shot dead and 3 others wounded in Lavender Hill while MEC Plato was addressing a public meeting about gang violence in the area. Condemns the senseless killing and calls on the provincial government to put in more resources in the fight against drugs and gang violence.
Order.
The point was made, Mos.
Order. There are objections that will be printed. Order. That will be printed on the order paper. Are there any more from this side? Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House notes and welcomes the universal and widespread rejection of DA plans to in effect privatize public education and to allow for the sale of alcohol in schools in the province, and notes further that in all the public hearings, Caledon, Riversdale, Oudtshoorn, Claver, Paarl, and finally in this chamber, in 4 of them.
Order. Order.
Notes further that in all these public hearings, the proposed amendments were rejected outright. Applauds the parents, teachers, and activists in the province for taking a stand against this bill, which the DA, led by the Premier and MEC Schaefer, wanted to introduce but refused to come to the standing committee.
Since I hear objections, that will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Lekker.
That the House commends the police for the sterling job they have done in combating crime in the province since the launch of Operation Thunder, which has resulted in a number of arrests for serious crimes, including murder and possession of illegal firearms and ammunition, and calls on the DA-run Maseko provincial government to give all its support to the police as operation continues.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Order. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the continued praise of some apartheid colonialism legacy by Premier Helen Zille shows signs of an irredeemable, arrogant, and conservative person. Notes further, despite the public protector funding against her, the Premier continues embarrassing the province and herself, by the way, and sowing divisions amongst the people, condemns this unbecoming conduct by the Premier and calls on the Speaker to initiate a process to take remedial action against the Premier. I so move.
There are objections to that motion. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Chacham.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House notes the release of quarterly labor force survey, quarter 2, 2018, which showed that the largest employment decrease were recorded in the Western Cape, with 50,000 job losses between quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2018. Increasing the official unemployment rate in the province. Notes the majority of job losses under DA rule, particularly in the agricultural sector, were not by accident, but due to structural problems which were created by the DA government, particularly poverty and inequality under DA.
Order. Any objections to the motion be moved? There's an objection. It will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Makaleni.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House notes with concern Cape Town incurred 47 million in irregular spending, topping the list of the 3 municipalities in the province that together spent 173 million in 2016 and 2017 without following legal prescriptions. Notes the Auditor General blamed this on the city's weaknesses, including political instability, and condemns the DA for non-compliance, which resulted in Cape Town, Pito, and Eden losing their clean audits.
Are there objections to the motion be moved without notice? There are objections that will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Chacham again.
I move that the House note with sadness the passing away of Daliwonga Loti Tamane, a long-time comrade and a member of the ANC, member of MKMVA, Loti as he was affectionately known, served diligently as a member of Nehau Regional Executive Committee and a member of Anti-Poaching Fishing Unit of DEV. We convey sincere condolences to the family and friends, in particular the children.
I take it there's no objection to that motion being moved without notice, nor against the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes and welcomes the release of a shocking book titled The Lost Boys of Bird Island, an expose by journalist Chris Stein and former police officer Mark Minnie. Notes further the book laid bare an pedophile ring of Port Elizabeth, where young boys were abused and denigrated by National Party ministers, and calls on the relevant authorities to uncover the full extent of statutory rape and crooked contracts to members of the ring. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Any further? Honourable Lekker.
I move that the House notes the blue untruth that were waved by the Human Settlement MEC in the public meeting in Nyanga last night, when the MEC could not respond to the Nyanga upgrade of almost 7 years behind, hostel to homes units development, and that here in the House on the 14th of June 2018, the MEC indicated that the contractor was moving in to finish the 7 houses at Freedom Square. Yesterday, he did not know about the 7 unfinished houses, which are havens for criminals involved in rapes, murders, etc. I so move.
Any objections to the motion being moved without... Are there objections? No. No objections? There is no objection, sorry. We hear the objections. It will be printed on the order paper. Are there any further? Order. For the last time, are there any further? Then none. Do we move on to the order of the day? The Secretary will read the order of the day. Order, just 1 second, Secretary. Order. Please read the order.
Consideration of the report of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters on the Protection, Promotion, Development and Management of Indigenous Knowledge Bill, B6D, 2016, entity ratification of final mandate.
Order. The House received the report of the Standing Committee on Premier and Constitutional Matters on the Protection, Promotion, Development and Management of Indigenous Knowledge Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. If parties wish to make declarations, we can do so. Otherwise, I'm going to put the question. Any objections to the report being... Is there a declaration? Honourable Gopi, I will see you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Declaration on the Protection, Promotion, Development and Management of Indigenous Knowledge System Bill. The Indigenous Knowledge System Bill has 4 driving agendas, which is protection, promotion, development and management. To a large extent, the historical content which the Indigenous Knowledge System Bill address is that of redress and transformation within the nation. Indigenous knowledge system can be used as a very powerful tool for national indignity and social cohesion. The mainstreaming of the indigenous knowledge is being addressed by the Indigenous Knowledge System Bill to deal with the marginalization of indigenous knowledge. It is also recognizes indigenous knowledge in the face of globalization. The Indigenous Knowledge System Bill provides a mechanism for alignment of government policies, streaming of legislation, the coordination and facilitation of access to indigenous knowledge. The indigenous knowledge system legislation seeks to create a balance between various interests in promoting economic and moral rights and create a balance between the public interest and the individual right. It is also seek to constitutional rights, giving efforts to the human rights in the Bill of Rights. The protection and commercialization of genetic resources, traditional indigenous knowledge, and traditional indigenous culture, expropriation have to come to the fore internationally during the last 20 or so years. The realization of the one hand that genetic resources and indigenous knowledge can yield valuable drug and treatment for the world's disease, and on the other hand, the adoption of music or songs, for example, of the indigenous community without their consent or knowledge, acknowledgement has led to concerns in recent years that protection of some kind of required to prevent abuse. The ANC support the bill which address the protection, promotion, development and management of the indigenous knowledge system. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. I sense there are no further declarations of vote on this. If not, then I will put the question. Are there any objections to the ratification of the conferment of authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support the bill? No objections? Then it's agreed to. That then brings us to the end of the order paper for the day and the business of the day. The House is adjourned.